tech, and that was great. I watched that, and that was very comprehensive. Yeah,
So,
that was.
so you're not trying to compete with her.
No, I cannot.
You give up.
Oh, thank you.
Center, and she's good.
Hang on, I have to remove everything bad that I was going to say about Rahil Afzal from my presentation. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I say good things though. I mentioned Datum Square, of course.
Perfect. Okay.
Okay, let's be serious. It's live now.
Yeah, Nabil, it's not live yet.
Okay, that's fine.
I have a quick question. What do I have to put up as a banner that I have to share on my screen?
I'll leave it on me. Yeah, let me put up the banner. Right.
Day two. Is there any way that we can like stream it on yesterday's link on MS Teams, or go with the new link today?
No, they need to go with the new link. We cannot relive the previous link.
Okay, so
is it updated on website as well?
Perfect.
Yeah.
Yes. Can someone share that with audience?
Sure.
Can you guys hear me? Hello.
Yeah.
Yep.
This is going to be on throughout, right?
We currently have 4 attendees in the list. So I think they will increase with the passage of time. So should we go live like right now?
I think so. We should go live.
Live. Atasab, is it going to be streamed on YouTube as well for today? I am just, I put the banner on Teams as well, if you can see. Is it because it's open in a photo editor? That's why. Also, I do have a suggestion for YouTube. Can you just change the name to DevCon V on YouTube Live? DevCon V Day 2 Code Movement Pakistan, like this.
Hi, Madiha.
Hi.
Madiha, do you need my help in absence of keynote today?
Maybe with the time and all. Otherwise, I think that should be fine.
Okay. I mean, I can do keynote's part if you want me to.
No, I think it's okay. Let's go with the flow. Once if I'll need you, I'll let you know.
All right. Thank you.
Perfect. So is it time to start?
But yeah, did you get my introduction on Skype?
Yeah, I have already. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So just let me know when to start.
Okay. Are we going to start in 5 minutes, right? In 5 minutes, RK?
Yes, in 5 minutes.
Sounds good to me. Yeah.
And is there any direct link, Ata?
For attendees,
No, for YouTube channel, for YouTube video.
live.
Thank you. Did you share?
Oh. Is it because it's open in a photo editor? That's why. Also, I do have a suggestion for YouTube. Can you just change the name to DevCon V on YouTube Live? DevCon V Day 2 Code Movement Pakistan, like this.
Hi, Madiha.
Hi.
Madiha, do you need my help in absence of keynote today?
Maybe with the time and all. Otherwise, I think that should be fine.
Okay. I mean, I can do keynote's part if you want me to.
No, I think it's okay. Let's go with the flow. Once if I'll need you, I'll let you know.
All right. Thank you.
Perfect. So is it time to start?
But yeah, did you get my introduction on Skype?
Yeah, I have already. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Can we start it? Or?
Hi guys, can you hear me? Yeah, bye. How good is that?
We can see Madiha's screen, the Skype.
Madhya, we can see your screen, so I think you should share some banner or something.
Is it better?
Yeah.
Or is it, yeah, you can see the banner, right? Because I don't know how is it working.
Yeah, we can see.
Okay.
I think meeting is live, so we should start.
So should we go?
And it's live on Team as well.
So should I share my screen, right?
Yep.
So meanwhile, should I just start now?
Yes, Madiha, go on.
Perfect. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Hello and good morning, everyone. I am Madiha and I'll be hosting this conference today. I'd like to welcome you all on the second day of the 5th Annual Developers Conference for the year 2020. I hope you'll have a wonderful, productive day today, like yesterday's. Let's start this day by calling Rahil Afzal for our opening keynotes. Rahil is a technology entrepreneur with a programming background. He started Dedham Square IT Services 11 years ago, which now has become a 150 plus people company. He co-founded Code Movement Pakistan in 2013, intending to spread programming awareness in Pakistan's youth and professionals. He's very active in IT industry and always ready to contribute. Now I'd give this conversation to Rahil. Rahil, over to you.
Actually, depends on your learning style. Before going to the level, let me share a story with you. Most of the senior level few years back, they had a client, did not have 10 years he was looking for a very senior developer and a coder. That the first year, reputation, a generic one, where a lot of languages, you are one people they ask question and answer people will ask, or you can go to the specific share your knowledge. And you are very active in the specific technology. You share knowledge, you share or your best friend who has no experience in the IT will help you. Or their suggestion may not be very helpful for you. And also spend 1 hour extra. If you want to learn something new, there is a proven saying that if you spend 1 hour extra to answer your question in a study of your chosen field, you'll be very much level expert in 5 years or 7 years. Questions, right? So always give some extra time after your job and learn something new and share with others. Now, if you would do that, you will be the one whose community will approach and invite you to come and talk in their events, right? So if you, I'm done here,
what about
and if you have any question, don't hesitate to ask. And if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to LinkedIn or Twitter, or you can email me, and I would love to answer your question. And you are not sharing your knowledge, you are not reading extra stuff. Thank you very much. If you have questions, then you guys can ask. I give an example of a guy. If you learn something in the first year of your career,
I have a question.
If you're not improving your knowledge, you're not reading new articles.
All right,
you
so
don't
that
go
was the
and
recipe of
join,
success for
programming
juniors and
sessions,
freshers.
you will be the
What
same.
about recipes of
You
success for people like
sit
me
behind.
who have been
No one would
in the
know
industry
you.
for
This recipe is for everyone. Same. Like you know, as I told you, if you have 10 years experience, if you have 10 years experience and you are not sharing your knowledge, you are not reading extra stuff in your knowledge,
I think we
in the field you work in, go and join the programming sessions, you will be the same. You will stay behind. No one would know you. This recipe is for everyone. either one is junior or a senior, there are a lot of people who actually attended our back in 2013 when we started it. Any other question? Until now, we
Yeah, I
have
think we
conducted big
have one
jam.
more question
We
for you.
conducted.
So it says, how many
There we
people
practically
benefited from Code
we
Boot in
teach.
Pakistan? Rahil, thank you so much for sharing all this information. I hope a lot of people would be benefiting themselves after hearing this out. Perfect. And I would like to actually move on with our first talk of the day. So basically, this is not going to be a tech talk. It's more like a non-tech talk for the day. I'd love to introduce this speaker because I personally really like her. So let me just introduce her. So we are going to be talking about a professional reputation beyond coding today. While technical expertise is important to success, non-technical relations are just as crucial to building those long-lasting relationships with clients, employers, or the IT fraternity. To discuss more on it, we have Tara Wadel with us today. She is an HRM certified professional, operational and interpersonal consultant, Oklahoma Women in Technology Chair and Leader, and COO of Also Virtual Staffing LLC and Devon Square IT Services. She has been in the IT industry for more than 8 years now, and today she'll be sharing how and why professional reputation is equally important alongside technical skills. Over to you, Tara.
And very happy that I have slides up here for years now. And it's really exciting that, and I should also have some subtitles. Can you all hear me and see my presentation? This talk is going to be a really great follow-up. Excellent. So I just have to say that I am extremely honored to be presenting and very happy that I have heard about DevCon for years now, and it's really exciting that because it's virtual, I'm finally able to attend and be speaking to everyone today. So this talk is going to be a really great follow-up to what Sir Rahil Afzal said about technical skills not being the end-all, be-all of your career, not being everything, that they can only get you so far. So I am looking forward to getting into this a little bit further and talking about your professional reputation beyond coding. And so Mattia gave me a wonderful introduction. I'm also going to add a little bit and repeat a little bit for you and formally introduce myself. As she said, I'm Tara Waddle. I'm a native to the United States, and I'm currently living within Oklahoma, the state of Oklahoma. English is my native language, so that is what I'm going to be speaking in today, though I do have subtitles turned on, and hopefully they're translating well. I've also worked with in case my speech isn't clear. For my day job, I work as the Chief Operations Officer with Allshore, and I have been with the company for 10 and a half years. It has been quite an experience being able to talk to people and work with people across the world. My colleagues in Pakistan, we have worked with clients in the United States, Canada, Puerto Rico, and the UK, just to name a few places. I've also worked with coworkers in Europe and the Philippines. So again, NGO called Oklahoma Women in Technology, and it has been very much for me like Code Movement Pakistan has been for you, something that has really helped me refine and sharpen my personal skills. Why is your professional reputation important? Why are we talking about this today? Professional reputation is everything within the workplace. It is outright what we are known for and the type of work that we are known for producing. It is literally what could make or break your employment, could give you new opportunities, a better earning salary for your family. So without positive professional reputation and credibility, you could be missing out on some really big opportunities. In the tech world, again, technical skills can only get you so far, especially when you are communicating virtually. If you work with any clients or team members remotely, especially in this year with the pandemic, a lot of us are not working in the same location. Soft skills are extra important to determine whether or not you're going to be successful on a project. So it's important to note here that credibility doesn't totally come from within. It isn't always even indicative, again, of our technical skills or years of experience. So despite what we know or what we believe about ourselves, it's ultimately in the interactions with others that can make a much bigger difference. I like this quote from Simon Sinek because it is a reminder of just that. Our reputations do not come from how we talk about ourselves. Our reputations come from how others talk about us. Interactions with others that can make a much bigger difference. I like this quote from Simon Sinek because it is a reminder of just that. Our reputations do not come from how we talk about ourselves. Our reputations come from how others talk about us. So how do you establish credibility? Let's go over that. I'm going to be going over 4 main tips and elaborating on each of them with some tools that you can practice in your day-to-day within the workplace. So first, learn to speak their language. Now, the there I'm referring to in this is specifically your audience, who you're speaking with, whether it is your client, your boss, your teammates. Language is more than just native tongue, whether you speak Urdu or Punjabi or English. Language is also a general word to describe how we communicate with each other. It can also even refer to your programming language. Language specifically is defined as the words, their pronunciation, and the methods of combining them, used and understood by a community, the vocabulary belonging to an art or a department of knowledge, the form or manner of expression. I thought that this definition was interesting and relates to yesterday when Scott was talking a little bit about this being an art. So all of you are aware of the native languages that people speak to each other. So let's go a little bit deeper than that. Again, I want to focus on the word or the middle definition of vocabulary. What sort of terms have you learned in your technical work that maybe somebody outside of that, a friend or a family member, would just not be able to understand? How would you talk to somebody who doesn't understand coding when you're working on a project together? There are many different reasons why miscommunications can happen. Again, especially if you're talking virtually. But for the sake of time, I want to focus on just 2 key language barriers here that we often encounter when we are working globally. The first being of native language or culture. So again, Urdu and English as an example. And then also technical knowledge or skill level, whether somebody is considered a technical person or a non-technical person. So how do you overcome those? Well, first, know your audience. You have to know who you're talking to and how they communicate as well. Put clearly, if you're wanting to work with someone who only communicates in English, you would need to effectively be able to either communicate in English or to use a translation app. Is your audience technical or are they non-technical? And if they're non-technical, perhaps you can break things down into simpler terms that they would understand. So you need to prepare and understand how to communicate things effectively to your audience in a way that they can understand. Secondly, stay professional. Know that some jokes, some comments, some remarks are not going to go over in the same way with one person that it might with another person. And that's especially important when you're working within different cultures, communities, and people from different countries. Sometimes things just go over in a different way. Thirdly, demonstrate active listening. What this means is when someone is speaking to you, you want to be able to repeat what they have said or to recap your understanding of what's been said to you. This is especially helpful when someone is giving you instructions on a task or an assignment or talking about project requirements. And then lastly, of course, ask questions when you absolutely do not understand and you're unable to find an answer on your own. Secondly, the second tip is taking ownership and responsibility. Sometimes this takes a little bit of experience to truly know how to get in there and demonstrate that you are taking ownership, but you can get started pretty quickly with a few steps, and it is very crucial. Ownership is a direct line to building your credibility and trust. So how do you do that and how do you demonstrate that? Well, first of all, your work should always be viewed as a personal investment. So maybe you are not the person that is actively paying for this project. Maybe it is your job. Maybe you're doing it to earn a salary. That's okay. If it helps to imagine that it is your money being put into this project, and you can think of it even as your time being money and your time being invested in this project, do just that. Demonstrating that you're engaged, that you're interested, that you're excited about a project is going to be very crucial to building trust from the very beginning with someone. You want to show that you want to be a part of every piece of the puzzle as it's coming together to, again, build that trust and ultimately set you up for success. Number 2, own up when you have made a mistake. This is a very big part of ownership and taking ownership over problems. Being honest and humble by confronting the fact that you have made a mistake is really key to building trust. When someone sees that you are willing to admit that you have done something incorrectly, that starts to have the other person feel that you are taking ownership, you understand what it means to take ownership. And then, of course, in that moment, thank your team for their patience with you, apologize if that's necessary, and then immediately start to get to work on a solution. Number 3, be a part of the solution no matter what. So what if it is not your mistake? Mistakes happen. We all know that. In software development especially, there is a lot of trial and error that has to happen to get something just right. So again, maybe you weren't the one who made the mistake, but show others that you're reliable, that you're willing to step up to the challenge, that you are ready to take things on, and you're invested, and you are going to be a part of the solution. Lastly, be upfront and honest with your capabilities, your knowledge, your background, your experience, and your understanding. This will set some clear expectations, especially when you're getting started with project scope, with time estimations, any sort of R&D that you anticipate you may need to do. And again, that's just one more element of building trust, of being transparent, of demonstrating that you care how the project is going to come together, and you care enough to communicate what you need to do to get to that point. If you don't know how to do something that's asked of you, it's best to just say from the beginning that you don't know how to do it. You may not know how to do it right now, but you're ready and you're willing to learn how. That will demonstrate again that you care, you're invested, you're interested, and you're excited to put your best foot forward into the project. Earlier, I mentioned asking questions when necessary. So this is a big tip in and of itself. ask the right questions. Now, sometimes it can be hard to ask questions or to know what to ask or know when to ask questions. So I want to go into some of the most practical things that you can ask when you're collaborating on a project. First of all, ask what the expected end goal results are for a project. So imagine that you get into your car and you're traveling to a location. Maybe you've never been there before. And maybe you don't know the directions on how you're going to get to that location, but you know what location you are going to end up in. Sometimes that's all that matters. There are multiple routes to get to one location, but you can't achieve success and you're going to have a really rough ride if you don't know what that final destination is supposed to be or what it looks like. If you don't know what the end goal result is supposed to be, how do you know what you're actually building and putting together? How can you contribute to it in an appropriate way and offer expertise if you don't know? So ask to make sure that you do, because that's another way to demonstrate that you are invested in the project, that you're interested, and you are looking to help achieve success. Secondly, ask your project manager, your project lead, your team lead, your client, anyone who is in charge of the project, ask them what their expectations and standards are. Yes, there are some core standards that you can expect with certain programming language, certain types of projects, but those may actually vary depending on who you're working with, the team you're working with, the company or the client that you're working with. There are so many factors that go into that and variables that can make standards different for each project that you work on. So it's best to ask about it rather than waiting and then a mistake is made and expectations aren't met. You don't want to be called out for something like that when you could just ask up front. So that leads into the third point, which is asking for feedback. It's important to know how you're doing. Are you meeting expectations? Is there something that you could be doing better? Asking this question is going to show that you're adaptable, that you're flexible, and that you are willing to make changes to improve yourself personally and professionally to achieve results. And that can be on a technical level or a non-technical level. Feedback can come in many forms. It could be related to a coding standard. It could be related to someone asking you to communicate with them in a different way. If we refer back to the beginning with language, it could be that someone is needing you to simplify information to them because they are non-technical. But you wouldn't know that if you didn't ask for feedback to begin with. Lastly, ask for help when you're absolutely unsure of how to continue. You don't want to get stuck and in a situation where you're wasting time, you're running in circles because you're trying to resolve and answer this question when you don't know the answer. Sometimes it is just important to speak up and ask. One thing that I do want to clarify with asking questions is I personally believe that it is best to try to find the answers on your own first and foremost. Now that could be asking a mentor, someone who has more experience, someone in a group like Code Movement Pakistan, someone that you can connect with to ask for feedback, ask for advice. They might have an answer. Of course, you can look online as well. There are a lot of different options, but at the end of the day, you don't, again, want to be running in circles and trying to resolve this question and running up against a wall. That's not productive. That's the point in time when you stop and ask questions and go from there. So my last tip here, in simple terms, refers to your enthusiasm and that it should match from start to finish. You want to start strong and end strong. So how do you start and end strong? Firstly, use your past experiences to get off to a successful start. The beginning of the project is the perfect opportunity for you to share any expertise, any suggestions, or prior experience that would come in handy when you're getting started on this work. You might have knowledge that others don't. If you are perhaps working on a project and you notice that there are some similarities in that project to something that you worked on before, it would be great to bring that up with your colleagues to demonstrate your expertise real time. Secondly, follow through and keep your word. Stay true to your commitments. If you say you're going to do something, make it happen. And that goes both for the people that you're working with, because you do want to follow through for your team, but you also want to show up and follow through for yourself. That is ultimately the best thing that you can do for yourself to continue with that personal and professional development. And again, that's something that ties back really to what Rahil was speaking about, is showing up and staying committed and true to your craft. That's ultimately the only way that you will get better. Thirdly, identify your weaknesses and areas for improvements. Sometimes, again, that takes you asking for feedback to define what those areas are that you could be better at. But it's crucial that you're honest with yourself about what you could have done differently, what you could have done better, and that you make a note of that so that next time you do know better. Finally, view the entire experience from beginning to the very end as a learning opportunity. Even if it goes wrong, even if it doesn't go as you expected it, a lot of trial and error is expected with projects and software development. So what did you learn from it? What are some lessons or tools that you can incorporate into your next project? There is always something to take away in a positive way, even from any negative experiences. So take that into account and use it to start strong in the next project, and the next project, and then the project after that. This is a continuous cycle that keeps going and continues to build that trust, that credibility, and professionalism within your career. Even being the best technical person, having all of the technical skills that you've acquired in your career so far, that's not going to get you there 100%. When you begin to work on yourself and you continue to learn new things, refine your skills, and admit to yourself that you don't have all the answers, amazing things can happen. I wanted to end with this quote by Brian Koslow as a reminder that having a positive professional reputation can open so many doors and opportunities for you. The quote is, "There is no advertisement as powerful as a positive reputation traveling fast." And that concludes my talk today for DevCon. I really appreciate the opportunity and being here with all of you, and open to any questions that anyone has.
Thank you so much, Tara. Khurram M has a question for you, so I'll just give it over to Khurram M.
Thank you, Madhya. Hi, Tara.
Hi.
Actually, my question is related to your last quote that you showed us related to the Brian Koslow. Okay, so my question is which number in terms of percentage you can give it to a professional reputation, such as body language, professional ethics, or communication, in contrast to the technical knowledge where there is a case of a technical professional?
That's a great question. I would say that typically it's going to be about 60% technical because you do have to have that foundation to go off of. You do have to know a little bit about what you're doing. And the other 40%, I would say, is attributed to that reputation, to your soft skills, to how you present yourself. Because in my experience, I've worked with quite a few juniors even that didn't have a lot of experience, didn't have a lot of refined technical skills, but they really wanted it. You can say that they were hungry to learn, and they worked really hard to communicate, over communicate with people, ask questions, and in doing so, they were able to work their way up very quickly because they started building that credibility, they started building that trust. So 60-40 is approximately what I would go with.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
I think that's all that we have as questions. I don't think we have any more questions for you, Tara. So thank you so much, Tara, for joining us today and imparting such amazing information to us. You always inspire us. Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you so much.
Now I'd like to move on towards our second talk. Yes, definitely this one is going to be a tech talk and not the one that we had right now. So it's basically about discussing the Flutter. We have Waleed Arshad. He's going to be presenting on Flutter. And the topic is Flutter for beginners, where a speaker will discuss what makes Flutter so cool and why one should at least try it. We have Waleed Arshad with us. He's a mobile technologist and a core mobile developer. And recently he has been titled as the first person from Pakistan to become a Google expert in Flutter. He's a community lead for Flutter in Karachi and a consistent speaker and influencer in Flutter at major events in Pakistan. He has been a part of IBM, TPS Worldwide, Karachi Electric, Unicrew Solutions. Will please continue with your topic today? Thank you.
Waleed, we are unable to hear you.
There's probably something wrong with your mic or internet. Can you please check it? I believe it is internet.
Either internet or maybe a microphone, something.
If mic is fine, maybe rejoining can fix it.
Yeah, either rejoining or reconnecting the mic, maybe.
Walid, we cannot hear you actually. We cannot hear you. There's something probably wrong with your mic or internet. We don't know.
Abdurrahman, are you facing same issues from Lahore?
Yeah, I'm facing the same issue. There is a lot of distortion, I believe, when he speaks. So there might be
Probably
something wrong.
something. Yeah. Can you try changing your mic or
Hello.
something? Yeah, it's
Hello.
good now.
Yeah, it's
Good
much
now?
better.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
perfect.
Okay. Let me start. Sorry for that. I guess it's some problem with the Teams app in Mac. So let me just share my screen and let's begin. So can you see my presentation, guys, right now?
Yeah. The good, the
Okay.
bad, the ugly one.
Yeah, okay. So guys, sorry for the delay. So I usually keep such motivational stuff in the beginning whenever I'm presenting some technical talk, because it's too technical for some people. So a little motivation for the beginning. So I always used to I always try to follow this in my life as well. So the whole point is that you need to keep yourself responsible for things happening to you. So whatever good, bad, ugly happens to you is because of you. It might you know feel a bit odd sometimes that, oh, why this should not be the reason. I should not be the reason behind this. What did I do behind this? But still, then if you start blaming yourself for everything that is happening to you, so you will get of a lot of problems in your life. So it's difficult, I know, but you should try to do it. And even if you start doing it, you will see a lot of change in your life, because whatever bad happens to you, you start we it's human nature. We start shifting it to any other people or to God or someone like that. So you should start blaming yourself, and you'll see a lot of positive change in your life. Okay, so Madhya has already introduced me quite well. Thank you so much for that. I'm Walid, and I am here in Pakistan, in Karachi, working as a senior software engineer in Flutter at Venture Dive. I have been working with a different sort of multiple opportunities and multiple sort of industries as well. So I've been working in power sector in a typical software house. I've been working in a startup which I started myself as well, and I've been working in fintech in a proper company as well. And now I'm in a proper project-based software house where we build mobile apps. So I was hired here as a Flutter developer. I'll tell you a little about Flutter Karachi a little later. So I've been recently announced as a Google Developer Expert from Pakistan, and I'm the first one here, and I'm trying to get more people towards it, because there is obviously no cap and no restrictions on the number of people that become Google Developer Experts. So I'm always open to people, and I'm always trying to take the people through that journey through which I went. I have been studying in IBS since like 2018, and I have just graduated from my master's in recently in 2020. And before that, I was in FAST as a bachelor's, so I graduated from 2016. I've been working in the industry since like for more than 4 years. Regarding Flutter Karachi, so this was a community which we started here in Pakistan. So when a little about 2.5 and 3 years ago, the Flutter was launched, and the developers around the world were promoting Flutter in their own countries. So there was Flutter Egypt, Flutter Spain, Flutter Delhi, Flutter Mumbai, Flutter India. So things like that in all of the world. So we just found out that there is nothing known as Flutter Pakistan or Flutter Karachi. So we thought that we should start it. So I, along with my a few colleagues in my previous company, we started this Flutter community, and we started doing events. We started promoting Flutter in Karachi. funded by Google as well. So that's that about Flutter Karachi. So we are always open to events and we are always open to collaborations. And this is, a complete non-profit and non-political, non-religious community. And we always try to help developers learn Flutter from that. So that was all a little about myself. And now let's just move towards the session. In this session, I'll just introduce Flutter to you. So you might not, start coding Flutter after this session. Obviously not. I'll just give you a motivation of why you should use Flutter. I'll show you the direction from where to start. And obviously I'll show you some code as well. I'll live code right now. And I'll show you how an app looks like in Flutter and how you can build something, and I'll just walk you through the code as well, so you understand that what is the architecture and what's the thing the Flutter is. So let's just begin. I don't have a lot of slides. I'll just move towards code from like after 2 or 3 slides. So there are a lot of definitions that people give regarding Flutter. I have studied Flutter a lot, and since all of the things that I know about Flutter, I just came up this I came up with this definition that is literal cross-platform UI toolkit. So I just put up this literal word behind this definition due to the fact that it's actually cross-platform. So whenever I used to hear about cross-platform, people used to talk about iOS and Android. So these are the 2 major platforms in mobile world. So whenever people talk about cross-platform, they used to talk about iOS and Android only. But when Flutter came, they told that it's one code base and it builds for mobile, for iOS, for Android, for macOS, for Linux, for desktop, for web, for embedded, for everything. So it's actually cross-platform. It's over the platforms. So therefore, I just gave it a little definition, which is called as the literal cross-platform UI toolkit. So you can build apps with no code change for multiple platforms. It's really fast, and it's fast because it runs like games. So games run on GPU, they don't run on CPU. So therefore games are really fast, and they paint their own UI, and they have nothing related to the architecture of the hardware architecture. They run on the GPU, they paint their own UI. So Flutter is the same. It runs on Skia. Skia is a graphics engine in mobile. So it runs on GPU, and therefore it's highly performant. Hot reload is one great feature that was previously in other technologies as well. But Flutter's hot reload is blazingly fast. It's less than 400 milliseconds, and I was really surprised when I used it, because when mostly it happens that whatever is being advertised, it is actually not there. Like we are mostly disappointed regarding that. So but I was really surprised when I used Flutter that Google advertised it as cross-platform, as fast, as developer friendly, and it was all there. So it was really intriguing and exciting for me. Okay, so now let's just get started. So for a beginner, for a junior developer, for people who are starting Flutter, let's just see that where should one start from regarding Flutter. Where should one start from? So first of all, let me just give you a few things that you need to care about when you're starting Flutter. So first thing you need to do is you need to go to flutter.dev. So this is a website which is created by Flutter team and which gives you all the information regarding Flutter. So you can try it right now as well. Like here you can run it and you can see what code you have it's written there, and you can just look over it. You can try Code Lab as well. You can see that it's all the promotional stuff. It's fast development, it's expressive UIs and all that. So you can find all the details regarding Flutter in this website. How you start by clicking on this. You get started and then you choose your platform. So if you're Windows guys, so I would suggest that you install Android Studio, because it's really necessary to install Android Studio, and it will show you here, like see, install Android Studio, it will show you. So what you need to do for Windows and for for different platforms, it's a little different, but the idea is same. You need to clone this Flutter, and then you need to update your path, and then you will be able to run this command Flutter Doctor. After you run Flutter Doctor, you will see that okay, you have these little errors, and some things are succeeded and some things are not succeeded, and then it will ask you to download Android Studio and start your setup. So one thing is that why do you want to install Android Studio? It's because you will have to have some app in your phone or in your simulator. So for that you have to have Android Studio, and if you are in Mac, so you need to have Xcode for that, so that you can just run your app like we are seeing here in the simulator. So either Xcode or Android Studio, you need to have either of these two installed so that you can run your Flutter app. So when you set up your Flutter, you set up your path and all that specifics, and then you create a new Flutter app using your IDE or using that Flutter create command. You get this simple app with a lots of comments and lots of explanatory stuff. And when you run it, so let me just run it, and it will run on this simulator. By the time it's running, let's just understand what's fit in there. So this is the main function. Obviously we always start from main. So this is one main function where it has a function that is called run app, and this run app takes one widget, which is this or my app widget, and this is a stateless widget. So I'll if time permits me, I'll explain you what is the stateless widget, but for now let's just keep it like that. So we have this build method that starts running when you run the app, and it returns a material app. Material app has all these themes and titles and home page and all of that stuff, and it has all the theme data as well. So it has primary colors as blue. So you see, this is the app that we get when we run a new Flutter app. So you press this button and you start incrementing the counter. So let's just look at where all of this logic is and where all of this code is. So this is the app that you run when you start your application, and this is the home page that you see. You see this title, you have this title, we have this title here, and this is the home page class that is created here, and it has a build method as well. And inside this build method is our main UI. So we have scaffold. Scaffold is a widget which tells you that you can have an app bar, you can have bottom navigation bar, you can have sidebar. So this scaffold is pretty much comprehensive and pretty handy widget, which automatically draws all these things for you. So this is the body, which is this white space with these text, and this is the floating action button. So we have this floating action button separately here. So you don't need to place it at a specific place. You just need to tell that floating action button property, and you just this appears there. So if I comment it out, so it will just disappear. So you don't need to tell it where to place it, what padding to give, what spacing to give. All of that is done by itself. And you just see that I commented the code and press Control S, save, and it changes. So that was hot reload, and you see that it is performing hot reload, and it is syncing files, and it is doing it in 300 milliseconds, 308 milliseconds. So this is one great thing that I like about Flutter, is that you just run the app once, and you don't need to build the app again and again, and you just change the code and press Control S, and everything is changing just like in a real app. I'll just show you. So we have this text, and we have this text counter. So we have this text and the counter here, and this counter is the counter value that we have over here. This starts from 0, and it keeps on incrementing as soon as we press the button. So this button has this increment counter function called here, and when in this increment counter function, this increments the counter. Simple logic, nothing fancy. It's pretty much straight and nothing so difficult for that. Now just let's explore all the selling stuff that Google sold that we have great hot reload and great developer experience and great widgets and all that. So let's just explore some of that. So let me just remove all of this, Control S, and we have nothing now. So let's just see that if we have a list style. So I know this widget, I'm writing this list style because I know it. So once you get familiar with Flutter, so you will also get to know these widgets. So now I'm just typing some code and just see that what that code brings up on the screen. So we have the title, we have text in the title, we say Walid, we have subtitle, and we say Walid @gmail.com. We have this leading icon, icons.person, and we have this trailing icons.arrow forward. And I press Control S and you see this UI. Now you see these are 5 lines of code and it produces this sort of UI. So for those who are listening to me and who are developers right now and who have been developing in native and in the other technologies, so you need to see that how purely clean and formatted and styled UI is this. I have given 0 styles to anything in this UI. I haven't given any style to this icon. I haven't given any style to these 2 texts, and I haven't told the UI where to place this arrow button, where to place these, where to place these. So how much of the specifics we are talking about in this UI is we have a 16 padding from here, 16 padding from here, some spacing between these 2 texts and these 2 texts as well. And you see the subtitle text that I gave, it automatically formatted it according to the subtitle. It's a little gray, it's a little small, and there's a space here, and this icon also turns gray. So this list style inside itself does all of this. So Flutter has given you this widget, and Flutter has given you a lot of these kinds of widget which helps you develop UI very fast and with all the guidelines. So you see all of these things that you see are spaced and formatted according to Google's material guidelines. So whenever you are using Flutter, so 2 things you don't have to worry about. The first thing is guidelines. Whatever widget you use, that widget is properly aligned with the guidelines. And the second, you don't need to build a lot of UI in your code. So this thing is just 5 lines of code, and if I copy it and I paste it again, and it will you see it's a sort of a list that is being started building up. And if I remove this leading and I add this circle avatar here, child text WA. So now you see this is becoming somewhat like an email app UI or a WhatsApp UI, where you have this picture of the person and you have some text here, a date, and some things like that. So you see how powerful it is to create simple UI in less than 30 seconds. I just wrote this UI and it created. And the bigger part is that this is one code base and this runs on all the platforms. So before we like I go towards the end, I'll just do one more thing. I'll just create a dynamic list just to show you the power of Flutter. So we just create one list of strings called as names, and we say that it is a list of string which says names. Okay, and we populate these names. Okay, we don't do this, we populate it directly. So we have Walid, we have Ali, we have Madiha here, and DEFCON 5. So these are the 4 names, and I want that these 4 names to be populated in these 4 tiles dynamically. So what we'll do is we'll just go here and we'll just remove everything from here. We don't need a column now. because column is useless for us now. So we'll just remove this column and we'll say list view dot builder, and we'll say build context and index. Okay, sorry. We'll say builder and we'll say context index return list style title text, and we have names of index, and we'll say item count as names dot length. Okay, so we have this, and I guess this should work. We should be having some names in the app. So you see all of these names are printed here with the list style, and if we add a leading here with circle avatar child text names of index dot substring 0 till 2. So what it will do for us, it will add 2 characters of each name on as a so you see how easy it is to create a dynamic list. So for suppose that this list is not here, it's coming from the backend and you just need to populate it, so it's really easy. So you see 5 lines of code and we are being able to create a beautiful list style, and we can also format it. So I can wrap it in a container. I can give it color dot blue, so it will turn blue, and we can say decoration box decoration radius border radius dot circular 10, and so you see it's rounded a little, but it's still not looking very cool. So let's just add some margin. Inserts dot all 8. So we have 8 padding from all sides. So you see, I just wrote a few lines of code in a few seconds, and this beautiful UI came up. So these are the possibilities that you can explore when you are using Flutter. So I have 10 minutes left, and I'll just show you one more thing regarding Flutter. So we'll just stop this app in this simulator. We'll just go here and we'll say, okay, I want to run it on web. So will it work on web or not? It's showing me that it can work on Chrome. So let's just see that if it builds on Chrome or not. So if this is 0 code change, you see I haven't changed anything inside Dart code, and the devices tab already was showing me Chrome, and I just selected it and I just played it. So let's see now that if it works or not. Okay, so let's just, oh yeah, started running. It should, yeah. So see, this is Flutter for web for you, and you can see that it is the same UI and it's all responsive. If I contract it, you see it's automatically adjusting itself, and this is a website. This is a proper website. Nothing, it's not just a wrapper, it's a proper website, and you can see here this web folder inside our page, and we have this index.html, and it's picking up all the things from Dart code and it's compiling to native. So it's all pure Dart code, and it's a proper website. It's a native website. It's compiled to native. So you see that this is the power of Flutter when you are using. So I didn't change one single line of code, and I just ran it on an iOS simulator, and then I ran it on web. And now one more thing I just want to show you, that I have this Mac OS also showing inside my devices. So let's just see if it runs on desktop as well. So I just told you in the beginning that okay, Flutter is very cross platform. It runs on the desktop, it runs on the web, it runs on Android and iOS. So I should obviously show you, because it was just the talking. So I hope that this runs on Mac OS as well, and then we'll see a desktop application, and just like we saw a web. And if it runs, then I'll just end my session, and I'll just go towards the question and answer session. So let's just see that if it builds on Mac or not. And this session was just an overview. So you see this is a Mac OS desktop app running on my Mac, natively compiled with zero code change, no hassle, just changing the device, building it on desktop, and it's running like a charm. You can do it in Windows as well. You can just put up your Windows desktop and play it there, and it will start working. So this was all from my side right now. I'll just stop my screen share. No, I just wanted to let you know that this is my email, and you can just reach me out on this email. And I'm pretty much active on LinkedIn as well. Actually, I was approached for DevCon from LinkedIn, so I'm pretty much active on LinkedIn and Twitter as well. And I reply to emails as well. I might not reply very fast, but I tried that I should reply to everyone there. So that was all from my side. Thank you, Madhya. Thank you so much, guys. And sorry for the delay in the beginning. I don't know why my AirPods mic was not connected to Teams. I don't know what happened, but that was it. And if you have any questions, Madhya, so I'm up for that. Thank you.
We certainly do have questions for you, Walid. So my first question would be, from Elliot. So Elliot, please ask your question, whatever you have for Walid.
Okay, hi Walid, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, my question would be, Flutter and React Native are both used to develop the native hybrid apps from a single code base, right? So why would I choose Flutter over React Native? What advantages do I get?
Okay, so first of all, a lot of people ask me this question, and this is that hard talk that we do, that whenever we are in the community, people come and people ask, okay, why React Native? Why should I use Flutter? There is React Native, and there are developers in the market and stuff like that. So basically, I always answer this question like this, that I never convince people to use Flutter. I always tell them, okay, use React Native if you want. You should try different tech stack that are available in the market, and you should see for yourself that how what changes you can see, what improvements you can see. And I always tell people that tech stack is not the thing. It's your requirement, what kind of app you want to make, that defines the tech stack. So it might not be that you should build all the apps on Flutter. You might need to go to native, or you might need to go to React Native as well. So it all depends on the type of app that you are creating. So if you are creating certain kind of app which has certain requirements, and that are being fulfilled only by native, so obviously you will go for native, you won't go for Flutter. But the point is that if you are comparing Flutter with React Native, so I should just recommend you that you start using it. It's all about developers. Flutter, what Flutter did was, I used React Native previously, I used Xamarin previously. Xamarin is more painful than any other language. So it is very very slow and things like that. So after I ported from Xamarin and React Native to Flutter, so I just realized that what Google did was, they picked up all the pain points from all the tech stack and they just solved them. They did nothing special. They just solved all the pain points of all the tech stack, and they gave that, okay, you have all these problems in all these tech stacks, take this Flutter and start developing. So what one thing they did was, they take all your problems of architecture level problems from your hands, and they gave you that, okay, do this Dart code, and don't worry about what is underlying in iOS, what is underlying in Android, what libraries do you support, what libraries do not support. Nothing. You inversely proportional to the frustration level of developers. So the less frustrated the developers are, the more product quality you will get. So that is my point of view, that Flutter tried to create coding as an enjoyment for developers. So that was the whole idea. So if if you're comparing React Native with Flutter, so you should try both of them, and then you will see for yourself. That's the actual answer for that.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is very good question. I always, appreciate this question, because this is very hard question. This is very hard talk, and it's really difficult to ask React Native or Flutter from a guy who is, selling Flutter and who is all the ambassador of Google and stuff like that. So this is really cool. I really like these kinds of questions.
So indeed, we have a couple of more questions for you.
Okay.
So the second one, I think it probably did answer, but I would want to say it out again. So if I put three options in front of you, Xamarin, Android Studio, and Flutter, which option will be the best one and why?
Depends on the kind of app you're creating. So if you are creating a very, very, very complex app with a lot of hardware features and a lot of, technical nitty-gritties, you want to, hit C# code. If you want to hit the architecture level code as well, you want to create a lot of, routes and navigations as well. You want to, it's a lot gyrometers and stuff like that, and AR and VR stuff like that. So I'll prefer you go for native, because it will be very difficult for you to maintain things. You might be able to create an app of AR and VR and very heavily architectured app from Xamarin as well, from Flutter as well, but that would take a lot of time, and that will you will be running on Google finding libraries for things like that. And it's really, this is the hard talk that I give, that I won't recommend you to go for cross-platform if you have a very complex app. But like I am doing since the last 4 years, so I'm working on apps like which have Google Maps, which have navigations, which have ride-hailing apps, banking apps, and food apps. Apps like Food Panda, which have payment gateways integrated, maps integrated. All of that can be done in Flutter. So if you ask me, Xamarin versus Flutter, I'll say surely Flutter. Why? Because Xamarin has one with this major point, is that inside Xamarin, you go down to the native level. You cannot write code in native languages. You will have to write it in C#. But with Flutter and with React Native and with other cross platforms, you can write code in their native language. Like you can write code in Swift for iOS if you want to write. So that is one drawback for, and Xamarin is very slow. So I would obviously, if you ask me to compare Xamarin and Flutter, I would always go for Flutter. But people should understand this. People should not compare native with cross-platform. Any native with any cross-platform. Cross-platform should be compared with cross-platform. Cross-platform is never comparable to native. Native has its own place, and it will never lose its place. It's there forever.
Perfect. So I think we have one more question. Khurram M wants to ask one from you. Khurram, over to you.
Thank you, Madiha. How are you, Walid?
I'm good.
Okay, Walid, my question is related to the user interface. You mentioned already a great feature that only a single code can be used for different platforms, and that is very much great for especially developers. But if I talk specifically about the user interface, normally designers design different screens for mobiles and different for websites. So in that case, how Flutter handle such user interfaces?
Okay, so that is two things I see in that question. First is you can have different UIs for web and mobile, and you can also have the same UI and make it responsive on web, so that it expands accordingly to the web. So if the designers are creating different screens for mobile and web, so they are actually not different. They might be, they should be the same, like the theme and the look and feel should be the same. Only the placement of the widgets and placement of the components might be different. So that can be handled obviously when we code in Flutter. So we handle the responsiveness, that if the screen size gets bigger, so you need to populate the UI accordingly. So whenever you know turn the tab, so it becomes a tablet for you. In the tablet, it expands differently, and on the web it expands differently, and on the small mobile screen size it expands to that specific thing. So yes, we can handle that in Flutter. Flutter gives you the state management for that whole screen size thing. So you always have the screen size during the build method, and whenever you drag, like I was just dragging the web thing, you see that I was dragging and the web to expand it or contract it. So whenever I drag it, the build method is called again. So you can just keep a check inside build method that if the screen size is bigger than a specific screen size, so that means that the web is opened or the tablet is open, so you can handle that UI. And that's the standard way of doing it. So the world is doing it like that. So I also whenever I'm creating apps in Flutter, so if I have to make them web compatible, I just use that media query, which tells me that the width of and the height is this much, and I can uh, keep a check for whenever the height is going beyond the threshold. So when it goes beyond the threshold, I know that now it's web. So that's one way of doing it. So you always can handle that. Flutter gives you out of the box for that platforms.
Thank you very much, Walid.
Thank you so much.
Perfect, Walid. I think we don't have any more questions for you. That's all from today, and we're almost ran out of time as well. Thank you so much for coming today and for your time, and for all the information that you shared with us over Flutter. Now I'd like to move on to our next speaker, or I'd like to say it's more like a boot camp now that we're gonna have for next 1 hour. The bootcamp is going to be conducted by Abdul Rahman. He'll be discussing about creating CI/CD pipelines using Azure DevOps. Abdul Rahman is a tech enthusiast, primary experience with Microsoft Stack on full stack and cloud-based enterprise apps. He loves to code, train, and contributes to the community via virtual sessions. As a community contributor and leader, he organized many tech events and conferences, along with the honor to speak at major tech events including .NET conferences, global Azure bootcamps, and Visual Studio launch events. So over to you.
Thank you, Madiha. Let me share my screen right now. So are you able to see my screen and my camera as well?
Yes.
Okay, just start here. Perfect. So hi everyone, this is Abdurrahman Aftab again today, and let me just introduce quickly myself. I am working as a principal software engineer at DatamScare, also a part of Code Movement team running the Lahore chapter, and I am also a Microsoft former MVP for the Windows Insider category, and I love to train people as well. If you want to connect with me, this is my email address. Just note it down and shoot me an email, and I'll get back to you. So the topic for today is Azure DevOps. Most of you might be familiar with DevOps. Most of you might not be familiar with it. So I'll start with basic stuff, and we'll go all throughout the creating the CI/CD pipelines. So these are some of the resources I wanted to share first. So if you want to go onto the dev website, you have azure.com/devops. If you want to follow on Twitter, Azure DevOps is on Twitter as well, and the forums are also available, and there are multiple blogs available for Azure DevOps on aka.ms/devops blog. So I'll sharing with you these links in the chat window as well right after my session. So what actually DevOps is? Let's talk with the definition from Donovan Brown. So Donovan Brown says is the DevOps is the union of people, processes and products to enable continuous delivery of value to your end users. So here there are basically four terms: people, process, products, and value. So we don't focus on delivering the lines of codes and more line of code or more number of features, we deliver more value to the users. That's what the end goal is. So for example, if you want to message on Facebook, you can communicate with your friends and family and other connections as well. So this is the value that Facebook delivers to the end customers. So we DevOps means the developers or the team or the company delivers value to the end users by the help of peoples and following some processes and delivering some sort of products and using some products like Azure DevOps or the other stuff as well. So what's the cycle? The cycle is you build and test your application. You then deploy that application to the server. And then you operate on that application, whether it be a dev server or the UAT or the production one. You operate on them. You get the feedback from the users as well. You monitor the application from the application insight and stuff. You learn from the application. Okay, this is going wrong and this is right, and then you plan according to those metrics that you gather from the monitor and learn and other users feedback as well. You plan accordingly for the future user stories and future features, and then you develop those features again, and that cycle continues to go on. So this is basically the cycle of continuous delivery. You just keep following the cycle within the very short span of time. For example, within a sprint of 2 weeks or something. So this by this way you can achieve the DevOps practices and deliver the value to the users. So these are some of the metrics that the company achieved by using DevOps. So you can you achieve the 46x deployment frequency, and you can move your features to the market right faster as compared to the waterfall model that we used to use before. But I believe most of the companies have now adopted the DevOps as well. And you can increase the revenue by delivering the value to the users and the features as well, and that means you have faster main time to recover as well. So these are some of the metrics that I wanted to share that you can achieve by adopting DevOps into your company or into your products as well. So how Microsoft can help in you adopting the DevOps? So Microsoft Azure is basically a cloud platform that is powerful and flexible enough for past, present, and future apps that can on which you can easily build, manage, and deploy any application and any stack on a massive global network using your favorite tools and frameworks. So if I talk about like 6 years or earlier, Microsoft has been famous for supporting their own platform and not supporting other platforms as well, and even they do not used to support open source stuff. But here you can see they are on the DevOps, they are supporting any sort of application. Like we can like we had just had a session with Walid Arshad. You can develop Flutter apps, you can use Azure DevOps to continuously deliver features to those Flutter application, and that can be on any stack. For example, Flutter can be on JavaScript and or Java, or you can develop any application on any stack and deploy on any cloud, including Azure, including AWS, and including other cloud services providers as well. So Azure is basically flexible. You can choose infrastructure as a service, PaaS, and public cloud or hybrid. That's up to you what you want to choose, and it's based on the company requirements. Or you can also mirror or modernize application infrastructure with virtual machine, containers, microservices, or serverless like Azure functions that we talked about yesterday. And it also support all stages of application modernization journey from lift and shift to cloud native as well. And also Azure is so powerful that you can instantly improve the performance and scalability and resiliency of your apps by moving them to the cloud. Also, you can use the DevOps capabilities in your application to achieve the continuous innovation as well. And you can bring any of your stack. For example, if you have application in PHP or Node or Python or C Sharp, F Sharp, or any, it could be any stack, including Angular, including Vue.js, React Native, React.js as well. Any stack could be there. They are open for any stack targeting any platform. By any platform, I means the desktop application could be used on Azure DevOps. Web apps can also be used. Mobile native application can also be used. Even headless application like Azure Function or AWS Lambdas can also be configured on Azure DevOps as well, and they can be in any language. So you can build application using the language of your choice. Azure supports what you already use and love, use and love, so you can get up running the fast. Just bring the code. So what technologies do I need to support Azure DevOps? Like I already said, DevOps bring together people, processes, and technology, automating software delivery to provide continuous value to the users. Using Azure DevOps, you can deliver software faster, more reliably, no matter how big your IT department is or what tools you are using. You can achieve continuous integration, continuous delivery, and you can even use the metrics and tools like application insights in Azure, or you can also use third-party tools that can measure your application within the Azure. So it also have a bigger marketplace in which you can configure third-party applications and tools as well. So for example, when you use Azure pipelines or Jenkins to build application in the cloud and deploy to Azure, each time you commit the code, it automatically builds and tested the code, and the bugs inside it are detected really faster. So because they have really fast virtual machines and agents that can test your code and build your application based on the configuration you provide. And by combining continuous integration and infrastructure as a code or IAC, you'll achieve identical deployments and the confidence to deploy to production at any time. Also, with continuous deployment, you can automate the entire process from code commit to production if your CI/CD tests are successful. So there are two steps that you can achieve with the help of Azure DevOps. You can build your application, like the code runs. There are no compile errors. All the references are good and resolving. And also you can achieve by running your integration and unit test into right into Azure DevOps. So it runs all the tests one by one, and it see, okay, this test is passing and this test is failing. Why this test is failing? You can also see the logs behind the scenes to see and investigate and fix your code with the help of those logs. And then comes the application insight stuff. So when with the Azure application insights, you can identify how your applications are performing and test if the recent deployments made things better or worse. So you can compare the metrics from the earlier deployments and the recent deployments in Azure DevOps as well. Using the CI/CD practices paired with monitoring tools, you will be able to safely deliver features to your customers as soon as they're ready. So by following up these practices, you can adopt some good practices by using the CI/CD pipeline. So we'll see in a while how you can create CI/CD pipelines and how you can configure your own application in it. So Azure DevOps has basically 5 major pillars. So one of them is Azure Boards. You might have used Jira or Trello. So Azure Boards is similar to those that can in which you can add your own tickets and user stories and bugs. It basically deliver value to your users faster using the proven agile tools to plan, track, and discuss work across your team. So you can, like for example, the stakeholders can see, okay, these features are currently in development and these are ready for the release and these are in the to-do list. So you can all manage in your Azure boards. Then comes the Azure pipeline. So Azure pipelines is responsible to build, test, and deploy your CI/CD pipeline. So you can configure your own pipelines in there, targeting any languages, platform, and cloud. You can also connect to your GitHub or any Git provider like Bitbucket or GitLab or any other Git provider that are available in the market, and you can deploy continuously to your own servers. Can be any cloud. Then comes the Azure repos. So I just talked about GitHub and other Git providers. So Azure also offers you its own Git-based repositories. So Azure repos are basically Git-based repositories where you can manage your code, and you can get basically unlimited cloud-hosted private Git repos and collaborate to build better code and pull request and advanced file management. So all of the Git features are available in Azure repos as well, and it's pretty much the same, just the provider differences there. And then comes the Azure test plans. So you have the company have their own QA engineering teams. So they can put their test plans in Azure test plans category, and they can ship with confidence using manual and explanatory testing tools that are available inside Azure. And then comes the Azure artifacts. So what Azure artifacts is, they are basically some sort of repository or something that can manage your references or your packages like Maven packages or NuGet packages or something like that. And all your you can add your own artifacts in CI/CD pipelines with just a single click. So all of them are available on azure.com/devops, or you can also go to dev.azure.com. So let's talk a bit detail about Azure pipelines. So Azure pipelines are basically cloud-hosted pipelines for Linux, Windows, and Mac OS with unlimited minutes for open source. So if your application is in open source on any cloud provider, then you can use Azure pipelines for free with unlimited minutes. And as I just said before, it is available for Linux, Windows, and Mac OS as well. So you can target any languages, any platform, any cloud. Many of the languages are already written as an example. So you can also deploy on Azure, AWS, Google Cloud, or on your on-prem application servers that are available in your company or anywhere inside the world. Also, it is extensible with a wide range of community build, test, and deployment tasks, along with hundreds of extensions from Slack to Sonar Cloud, and it also supports YAML reporting and other stuff as well. So you can use extensions from the marketplace and integrate with your Azure DevOps. I will just show you how you can do that. And it also supports containerization and Kubernetes. So if your application are on Docker containers or Kubernetes cluster, you can also use Azure pipelines for to configure and deploy those applications into containers and Kubernetes. So Azure Container Registry is also available on Azure. You can deploy containers to individual hosts and Kubernetes, and this basically is best in class for open source development. If you are developing for open source application, and even those applications that are not open source, that can also be built. But best in class means you have unlimited build minutes for all open source projects with up to 10 free parallel jobs across Linux, Mac OS, and Windows. So to go to Azure Pipelines details, just go to azure.com/pipelines. So these pipelines can also be integrated inside your GitHub project. So you can see, okay, this is a project, and you integrated your Azure pipelines into GitHub, and you can see with the image like, okay, this is current build is failing in pipelines, or is it passed or something, is it succeeded? So you can use those metrics in GitHub directly. So this is basically a history of open source from 2012 until 2018 and now 2020. So they have started open sourcing the projects from 2012. They added Git to TFS and Visual Studio. So previously they have only their own Team Foundation servers and Team Foundation version control. That is basically a centralized repository unless Git. So they introduced Git inside their own TFS and Visual Studio, and they also they also created an organization on GitHub to support open source and create their own open source projects. So the open source community can contribute to those projects, and they can build really faster and deploy those applications. And then in 2017, they introduced SQL Server on Linux, and they also joined the Cloud Native Computing and Cloud Foundry Foundations and they also joined Linux Foundation as well in 2017 or 2018. Yeah, and in 2018 they intended to acquire GitHub as well. So now GitHub is also owned by Microsoft, but is running as a separate entity. So this is the brief history of open source that Microsoft has acquired and adopted. So you can really rely on open source tools from Microsoft. Even the VS Code that you use is already open source on GitHub. You can contribute to those repositories of VS Code. Also, the TypeScript that is owned by Microsoft is also open source on GitHub. Even the .NET itself, .NET Core, is also open source on GitHub as well. So if they can do it, you can do it as well. So this is basically the summary of Azure pipelines. You can get free unlimited build minutes for public projects that are open source, that can have up to 10 free parallel jobs across Windows, Linux, and Mac OS. So GitHub pipelines, as I already mentioned before, you can integrate them with Azure pipelines with GitHub that are available on GitHub Marketplace. You just go to GitHub Marketplace, search for Azure pipelines, and it will be available to you, and you can set it up on your own GitHub repository. So let's talk about boards. We just talk about pipelines. Let's talk about boards now. And what boards are is basically they connect from they're connected from idea to release. Like you got an idea, you say, okay, I want to deploy this feature so I can deliver this value to the end customers. So you just add that user story into Azure boards, and then your team got started working on it, and then you can deliver those values to your end customers directly. And it is also Scrum ready. Scrum features and also Agile features are available. You can use Scrum boards and planning tools to help your teams run sprints, stand-ups, and planning meetings, even retrospectives as well. And you got projects insights like, okay, this is a current release and this is the current sprint that has this percent of the stories are completed, and this person is under progress, and all that project insights are available to you and to the stakeholders as well. So you can configure those on your Azure DevOps dashboards. Then come the Azure repos. So these are basically the unlimited private repositories, hosting and support for TFVC that scales from a hobby project to the world's largest Git repositories like VS Code and other Git repositories like .NET Core and all that. So it works with your Git client, any Git client, and that can securely connect with and push code into your Git repos from any IDE editor or Git client. It also supports webhooks and API integration, so you can add validations and extension from the marketplace or build your own custom webhooks and APIs into your application and then integrate it with Azure repos. And it also has a semantic code search, so you can quickly find your own code what you're looking for with code-aware search that understand classes and variables as well. So this is basically the semantic search feature that is available in Azure repos. Then comes a test plan. So what test plan is, you can get end-to-end traceability, run tests, and log defects from your browser, track and access quality throughout your testing lifecycle. You can capture rich data based on those test scenarios, and you can execute tests to make discover defects actionable. Explore user stories without test cases and or test steps. You can also test across web and desktop applications, and you can get end-to-end traceability and leverage the same test tools across your engineers and user acceptance testing stakeholders. So this is one of the part that is I am sorry to say that is not available for free. You have to pay for getting the test plans and integrated into your applications. So like Azure repos are free, pipelines are also free. These test plans are not currently available for free. Then comes the Azure artifacts. So you can create or share Maven, NPM, or NuGet packages or any other packages from public and private sources, fully integrated into CI/CD pipelines. You can configure those packages into your pipeline definitions and add the packages into your pipeline and share the code efficiently with your teams that can be small or even large enterprise grade teams. So let's demo really quickly what Azure DevOps is. Let me share my browser and I'll start with the clean slate. Okay, so I'll go on azure.com/DevOps, or you can go to dev.azure.com. So both redirect you to the same website. Here you can see, just hold on. Let me just start this. Perfect. So here you can see you have the option to start free. You can start free with GitHub as well if you have a GitHub account, and you can, if you already have an account, you can sign in directly to Azure DevOps. So I already have an account. I go with sign into DevOps, and it will ask me for my identity. So you see, you have already a feature available if you want to sign up, sign in with GitHub. So I'll go with my personal account. Authenticate it. On my application on phone, and I will be redirect directly to into Azure DevOps application. Also, I'll open up portal.azure.com, and these are some of the repositories that I created, but for you, I'll create a new project. I will name it devconf with no description at all, and I can make it public or private. For now, I'll go with public, private, and for version control, I can use both version control Git and TFVC as well. So both of the options are available. I'll go with Git, and you can also choose which model, which process you want to use. So if it's a basic project or agile or scrum, I'll go with, for example, agile. Or you can create your own process as well if you are running that in your company. So I just created demo datum agile with, I click create. So we have this, whenever you create a project, you have this type of user interface. So this is basically your dashboard. You can put some, you can see some of your project stats in here, members uh, of your organization and projects. You can also use some other metrics from boards, repos, pipelines, test plans, or artifacts in here. In your dashboard, so you can basically see the metrics in here in the form of charts and other stuff. You can also invite members from the right side, and it will show you, okay, if it is a private project or the public one. Then comes the dashboard. Okay, this is basically the dashboard. You can add widgets into your dashboard. Okay, you can add widget, for example, show me the tasks assigned to me, and this comes in here. You can configure it in the settings, and you can set up the width and height of your widgets, and you can also see the build history. Okay, which build is facing and how much percent builds are succeeding and failing as well. And also you can review your burn down chart for the sprint. So there are a lot of applications available, and there is also an extension like extension gallery, so you can add widgets from the marketplace to directly to your DevOps. I go and click add. Okay, oops, delete and done editing. So you now have these widgets available in here. You can see full screen. You can configure these widgets into from configurations. So as I don't have already have build created, so I won't be seeing anything in here. You can also rename the title of the build of this widget as well. And then comes a wiki. So wiki is basically some notes. If you want to create for the project, you can create project wikis in here, or you can publish the code as wiki on the in the repository as well. Then comes the boards. So This is basically the work item view of the boards. You can create a work item from here. You can create a bug, epic, feature, issue, tasks, test case, and user story. Keep remembering that this depends on the process style that you select when you create the project. So if you select agile, it will just give us the templates of the agile processes. If you select scrum, it will then mold itself to the scrum. And if you go with basic stuff, then it will just the basic stuff will be available to you. And even you can configure these things into your application from right from the project settings. So you can open in queries. You have the column option available, which columns you want to use. For example, I create a new user story in here. For example, I want my team to create a login page. Create login page, and you can also give the acceptance criteria with bullet points or numberings, or you have the rich text editor available in here. You can also add images or links, and you can mention someone in here as well. Then you have the story points available. So you follow the scrum process, agile process. You can put your story pointings, for example, whatever the story point model you follow, and you can also give the priority. Okay, this is the high priority or the lowest priority, and the value area, is it business or is it architectural or is it something else? You can configure it as well. Then you have the option on the right side to add link from your development. For example, you can add your own branches or commits in here. Like you can add branches found in build and commits, change set, or anything with this work item. So it will directly linked to that development task. Or you can also add existing work item in here. For example, if this is a part of an existing feature or epic, you can add that in here as well. Then you have the history tab. You can view the history. Okay, this is the history. Someone changes this and this and this. Then you have the links. If you want to share links or the screenshot attachments in here, you can also do that. So whenever I save, you see it assigns an ID to the user story or the work item. So this is basically the unique ID to any work item that is available in your Azure boards. So then I go to the boards view. So I can see it's basically the sort of Kanban board. So you have the new active, resolved, and closed lanes in here. So for example, I drag and drop this into this. So you see the state becomes active. I go to resolved, the state becomes resolved. I go to close, the state becomes closed. So you can configure these states, and even you can add more lanes in here according to your own needs and requirements. So you can drag drop any work item from here to any of the other lane. You can also open it up here to edit. You can choose the area and even the iteration as well. For example, we have 3 iterations by default. You can move this to any iteration. And then we have backlogs. So backlogs means, okay, you have many features available in the backlogs, but in the sprint you have a subset of the backlog that you want to develop in the current sprint. So you can see the backlog view. If you can also create a bug based on the user story. For example, someone was developing the something on the onto this user story, for example login page, and I see, okay, the bug that username is not being validated from the backend, so I can create a bug that relates to this username validation not working, and I click save and close. So you see it comes right under this user story. So it maintains a hierarchy of these things. Even you can create subtasks based on this. For example, you want to assign create login UI to the front-end developer and the backend code to the backend developer. So you can also do these things from right from the backlog window. And then comes the sprint. So you don't have anything in the sprint. If you have any work items available in the sprint, you can drag and drop into the current sprint as well. For example, in the right side, I have the sprints available. If I want this work item in my current sprint, you can just drag it and drop it into the current sprint. So you see you have one user story, one task, and one bug that are related to this. And now if I go to sprints, you can see in here. So let me just okay, perfect. So let's quickly set up our CI/CD pipeline in repo. So for example, I want to create a new application. I open up Visual Studio and create new project. And I'll go with ASP.NET Core Web Application. So I have .NET Core Web Application. I click Next, and then I put the name of my app. For example, I go with E. Click Create. I believe you all are familiar with the UI of the Visual Studio. So I can target any framework, including .NET 5 as well. I'll stick with .NET Core 3.1 for now, and it will be an MVC application with HTTPS enabled. So what I will do is I will host this application into my GitHub repository, and then I will integrate GitHub with Azure pipelines and see how we can build our application from GitHub directly into Azure DevOps. And just pull it up here. Okay. I created an application. I click on OK, add to source control. That will be Git in my case. And it says, okay, where you want to host a repository. Is it GitHub? Is it Azure DevOps? Or is it something else? I say, okay, push to new remote on the GitHub account. If you go to this, you will be asked to validate your GitHub credentials. So once you have validated your credentials, you have your account in here, and the owner of the organizations are also all available in here. So I'm a part of .NET Foundation as well, so I can see this. A repository name will be defcon v. If you want to put any description, is it a private or public, I'll go with the private one, and you also can see the URL of your GitHub repository. I click create and push. So if you have an existing repository, existing organization that is available on any Git platform, you can sync that up with that GitHub repository, that Git repository as well. So this is pushed to master, and now if I go to my GitHub, you can see I have this project available in here. I have this project for defcon v, and all the code is reside in right into the Azure GitHub repository. So now we have created the project. Let's move back to DevOps, and because we are not using Azure repos, we can turn it off, and so we don't see it here because we are using the GitHub repository for our code repository. Then I move to the pipelines. So how you can create pipelines? So there are two types of pipelines. First one is the build pipeline that will get your code from any of the Git repository and build it, run all the tests, and then you can get that build and create a release pipeline to deploy it into your application server. I'll go with classic editor, and my code resides on Git. So you can see there are many repositories available in here. If you wanted to use other Git repository that's not listed here, you can go with other Git. I have it in GitHub. I'll go with GitHub connection 1, for example, authorized using OAuth. Oops. Okay. Authentication. Oops. GitHub. 277. Once it is authorized, you can see all your repositories in here from this window. I have this devconv that I just created. So you can also see all the branches in here. Since I only have master branch, I can select master and then I click continue. So once you have the Git repository, you can select, okay, what type of project is this? Is it .NET project, Android based application, or is it Azure Web App for ASP.NET, or is it a Maven based project? So you can see there are a whole lot of available in here, or you can also create an empty pipeline and create your own build definition. So I'll go with, where is it? ASP.NET Core application. I click apply and I'll host it into Ubuntu Linux, and we have these built-in steps available. This is a branch that we want to use for this pipeline, and we have these are basically the steps that you want to uh, provide to the build definition. Okay, first restore all the packages from the .NET restore command. These are all the configuration onto the right side. Okay, look at this project path and then restore all the packages that from the .NET restore command. And once the packages are restored, go to the build step and then build our whole application. Once the application is built with no compile errors, it will then run .NET tests. If we have any test available in the project, we can run all the tests in here. And then we can publish it into some publish it to make an artifact, and then we can publish that artifact into some sort of path that we can use this path and get that artifact and then configure our release pipeline. So this seems so far so good. I'll go and save and queue. So see if our if our codes is buildable or not. So you can also view all of the logs available in based on the runtime. Whatever is running onto the backend, you can see in here. So agent one job is running, it initializes a job, and then you can see all the steps: restore, build, test, publish, and publish artifact. So in the meanwhile, we create an application on Azure so we can deploy it. I click on the create new resource and I'll go with web app. Come on. So you select this subscription that you already have. You can try it for free from azure.com/free as well. I'll go with and create a new resource, devcon vrg, if I already not have it. Okay, I click on devcon v. Let's see. Okay, this is available. Our application is the code and not the Docker container. Runtime stack is .NET Core 3.1, and you can also choose runtime stack from based on your application, including Node, PHP, and Python. And I'll go with Central US. Operating system should be Linux. And here you can select your app service plan. I'll go with this one, and then I'll maybe remove it later. So you want to use application insights? I go with no, because it doesn't come with this app service plan. If you want to enable application insights, you can change your region or the app service plan to enable it. Tags and review. Review all your configurations in here that you configured in each step, and then click create. Once the validation is passed, you can click create. So let's see if, okay, so far so good. The agent job is succeeded, and if I go back, so you can see the build is succeeding. The path not found for the project test because we don't have any test project in our application right now. So this seems a warning and not the error. So we can remove that step if we want to, if we have no test projects available in our project. So the deployment is in progress, and in the meanwhile we go into pipelines and see, okay, this is our pipeline, and tick means succeeded, run by this and manually trigger on the branch master, and you can see the time as well in here, and it took 26 seconds to run this pipeline. So this is basically the commit name with the date time string. Let's go into release. As we have a build pipeline available, we can create a new pipeline for release stuff. Come on. I don't know why it's taking so long. Let me do it again. Okay, the resource is ready. We now have an up and running application on Azure, and if you can follow the URL and click on browse, so you can see devconv.azurewebsites.net is up and running with the default page in it. Okay, now we have the release pipeline definitions with us. So we select, okay, we want to deploy it on Azure App Service deployment. Yes, this is an app service, and you can also deploy it on your Kubernetes cluster or Node.js app service deployment. Start and all. Okay, I'll go with this. And this is created. I want to select an artifact. I click add, and the artifact I want to select is from the latest build that is succeeded. You can see, okay, get this build pipeline and select the version. I click on latest, or you can specify the version from here as well, and it will create a source alias as well for this. I click add. Now we have an artifact that we want to publish. So there seems some tasks that are not configured and needs our attention. So I want to configure my application on Azure. It is asking me to choose my Azure subscription. I click refresh. Come on. Yeah, now we have it. I'll go with Visual Studio. No, not this one. Enterprise, and I click authorize. It will move. I click on approve. Okay, so my subscription is about to authorize, and then I can view all the resources of my subscription in here, primarily the app services that I just created. Okay, so we are authorized. I click on web app on Linux since we have the application configured on Linux. App service name was defcon v. You can see in here. And startup command, if you want to put any startup command, so this is not the mandatory stuff. So I have this stage one ready. I can also name it something else. So you can click on Ubuntu 16.04, and I can do some other stuff as well that is not required at the moment. So For the deployment service, I want the connection type should be Azure Resource Manager, and it could be a published profile based on your artifact. And the app service name is here that I just configured. The packages is here that I configured into my build pipeline. And the runtime stack, if you want to put, because it's already put in here, so you can go with Ruby, Node, and PHP and .NET and all that. And I click on save. Okay. So now let's create a release in here. Stage 1, fine. And I click create. Okay, so this release is being created manually, but we can, let's go into the pipeline and see if we want to run a build based on every check-in on master or every pull request on master. So I click on edit the build configurations, and I go into trigger and simply check enable continuous integration. And you can also select all the branches in here that you want to continuously enable CI for those branches. So I click this, and you can also go with pull request validation and this is continuous integration. Okay, if you have any pull request available, you can just click continuous integration in here. So I'll go with the check-in one, and then I click save. Same goes for the release. Oops, hold on. Saved. Same goes for the release, and release 1 is currently under process. Come on. Stage 1 not deploy. Okay, this is since a manual trigger, I have to click on deploy. Now it is queued. So in this configuration for the release, if I go into edit and go into let's see, we can schedule this, or yes, this is a trigger based on the continuous deployment. So whenever we have a new build available in here, we can schedule this task. So we have this available as well, and we click on save and go back to our release pipeline. Stage 1 is still in progress. Let's go through this. Perfect. So if I refresh this page, we should see our application in here. So far so good. So I believe since we have a shortage of time, but we already see how we can configure the triggers. So whenever you push some new code into the master branch, it will automatically trigger the build pipeline, and once the build pipeline succeeded, it will then trigger the release pipeline. Now so we have seen Azure boards, repos, pipelines, not the test plans, and Azure artifacts as well. And so you can also bring in your own pipelines into DevOps as well. If you have any jobs on Jenkins or Chef or Puppet or Terraform, you can configure all those into Azure DevOps as well. So Azure DevOps is basically broaden and keep broadening by the passage of time. So these are just some of the tools that I just showed onto the screen, but there are a whole lot of available into the Azure marketplace. So you can also create the dev test environments into Azure as well. I just go through it, and you can also create your infrastructure as a code or configuration as a code by the help of Azure Resource Manager or ARM templates. It also supports the third-party integration with third-party and OSS tooling such as Terraform, Ansible, and Chef as well. So you can also configure your security based on your network security groups in Azure. So you can so in a nutshell, you can use any of the Azure service into your Azure DevOps application. Application insights, we already talked about it, and you can choose the tools and the clouds you love, and you can configure all that into Azure pipelines. So these are some of the examples of the providers that are already using the Azure pipelines, including Shell, Accenture, Hawaiian Airlines, Columbia, and there are a whole lot of available. These are just 4 ones. So DevOps at Microsoft. So basically, they are also using Azure DevOps and having more than 80,000 deployments per day. So if they are doing 80,000 deployments per day, then we can also use like DevOps for like 2-3 deployments per week, maybe. Like that depends on our own project and own structure or the process that we follow. I already showed you this, so it can have multiple stages and rings as well. So once one is succeeded, you can push your own that build into other stages as well. And you can also migrate your application from TFS to Azure DevOps. There are tools available over the internet. You can go to aka.ms/TFS import. And this is the summary for today. If you want to start free, just go to azure.com/DevOps to start free. So free tier is available and for small teams. So up to 5 users, there are free tier available. But if you have the larger team, you can start with $6 per user per month for boards and repos. Thank you so much, guys, for having me. And if you have any questions, I will take those. Oh.
So we have one question here for you. It says how DevOps is different from AWS, Code Pipeline, and Jenkins. If we want to choose between DevOps, AWS, Code Pipelines, and Jenkins, which is the best tool to go with and why?
So there are comparisons available onto the Azure websites as well. Just go there and you can see, okay, these are the features that are available in DevOps. Like I showed you it, you can target any languages, targeting any platform, and you have the capability to integrate with any of your Azure Azure service as well. So if you are already using Azure service, just go into and sign in to Azure DevOps and keep using your Azure services. And also since Azure already also have the AD facility, Active Directory facility. So if your organization is on Office 365 and using Azure Active Directory, so you can leverage those capabilities into Azure DevOps as well. So this is a huge feature that is available into Azure DevOps that you can leverage from based on the other stuff. And for example, if you have already jobs on Jenkins available, you can use Jenkins jobs, and even you can configure those Jenkins backend jobs with the Azure DevOps itself. So it's basically an open platform that is available for everyone. It's basically up to one's own choice. So if you are using AWS Cloud and all the AWS services, and you want to go with Azure DevOps, you can go with Azure DevOps as well. So this is basically one's own choice, and the comparisons are available over the internet. If I can show you, if you have any further questions, feel free to ask, and I can show you the comparison between this. So if you go in here and see Azure DevOps versus Jenkins, so you see you already have a whole lot of comparison that people already have done. So you have many capabilities in DevOps, but Jenkins is purely, I believe, the script based. So DevOps is you can create your pipelines within a few clicks, unless on Jenkins and maybe other platforms as well. Any further questions, Madiha?
Not really. I think that's all for today. There are no more questions for you.
Perfect. So thank you so
So
much for
thank you so
having
much,
me.
Abdul Rahman, for your time. Yeah, thank you so much for your time today. Now we'll move on to our next speaker. So our next speaker is Babar Zahoor. He's going to be talking about OpenStack private cloud. He's a DevOps master and a trainer with 20 years of experience. He has been providing training in Asia and Europe. He's Linux Urdu CBT's contributor since 2008. He's also a certified robotics process automation engineer and a founder of the Open Source Foundation of Pakistan. Over to you, Babar.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. This is Babar Zahoor. How you doing? I hope everyone is fine. So are you able to see me? Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, we
So
are.
I'm gonna share my screen. So give me movements, please. So I hope you're able to see my screen as well. So uh, who I am? My name is Babar Zahoor. Uh, I'm working in IT information technology industry when it was not called as a information technology industry. So at that time we used to call it, I'm working as a computer hardware engineer. So I started my career in 1999 from a shop or workshop where I used to fix the computers. So during that year, I also started working in Linux operating system. I came to know that this is something which is going to change the world. So till 2001, I was able to get a little bit grip of Linux operating system, which make me what I am today. So I'm founder of Open Source Foundation of Pakistan. I'm also openware business company startup where I work as a chief technology officer, and I'm also working with a one American Silicon Valley based company. They are working on data analytics. They are named as Biome Analytics. So my role over there is consultant DevOps and cloud infrastructure. So my topic is today OpenStack private cloud. So first of all, I would like to thank you very much, Rahil. There are two Rahils in the group, Nabil, and all of them who are part of the DevCon management team. They are, mashallah, doing a lot of work for the country. They are trying to get together the developers in the community and build the community to make our country technically stronger. Am I right, Nabil? I think so. So the challenges, what is the challenge? The first challenge, who needs private cloud? So normally we see that everyone is using the public cloud, like Amazon Web Services, like Google Cloud, like Azure, like some other cloud providers. But the question is, are they going to fulfill the requirements of other organizations as well? So the opportunity is here that government enterprises, they uses private cloud. Government-owned entities like NADRA, like Utility Store Corporation of Pakistan, they uses private cloud. They don't want to have their data publicly available on any public cloud. Then law enforcement agencies, they are also the biggest users in the country. Wherever you go, they are the users of private cloud. Then telecoms, then oil and gas organizations, then banks. Telecoms, banks, they are bound to the compliance, and the government on entities and government enterprises, law enforcement agencies, they are bound to put their data inside the country. So that is the requirement for them. After that, healthcare institutions, educational institutions, we have 325 universities in the country. They need private cloud. Why they need private cloud? You know that because they are running their own infrastructure. They have a lot of things. They have to run their LMS. They have to run their high performance computing clusters. They have to run their resources to contribute to the research and development which is going on inside the organizations. So that's why they need exponential computing resources. So they need private cloud. Fast growing companies, obviously, you know, there's so many fast growing companies in the world. I would like to put one example over here. All of you know that Ali Cloud, Alibaba, they they made $72 billion sales in a single day. That was a huge sales. It was a world record. So was that possible without having their own infrastructure inside their different locations? I hope that was not possible for them. So they are also using OpenStack private cloud and the tech companies and the startups. So everyone, and they're a big list, but I try to add few here who are the users of private cloud and what is the solution for them. There are multiple options, so they can use private cloud. They can have very expensive virtualization engines inside an infrastructure where they pay exponential fee every year as a licensing cost and the support and some other stuff. But is that sustainable for them? No. So what is the solution? The solution is OpenStack. So OpenStack is a solution. Why I call OpenStack is a solution? Let me give you one very good thing. It's OpenStack is one of the top 3 most active open source projects and manages 15 million cores. 15 million cores compute. OpenStack is managing 15 million cores. It's a huge number. So here is OpenStack. What is OpenStack? Let me go and share with you what is OpenStack. OpenStack is a cloud operating system or cloud software that controls large pool of compute, storage, networking resources throughout a data center, all managed and provisioned through APIs with common authentication mechanism. So OpenStack is a framework, is an operating system, is a cloud software which manages your storage, compute, networking. But the important thing, it is using API infrastructure. So anything which is talking through API can be connected with OpenStack project. So the dashboard is also available, giving administrator control while empowering their users to provision resources through a web interface. So the good thing is there is a web interface like Azure, like Google Cloud, like some other clouds. So OpenStack also have a very good UI UX based dashboard where the administrators can easily manage their resources. So here's a simple snapshot of OpenStack. So you have a OpenStack engine, you can manage your virtual machines, you can manage your containers, and you can manage your bare metal infrastructure. So what is the OpenStack landscape? Rahil? Hi, Rahil Afzal. So what is the landscape of landscape of OpenStack? I hope you are able to see my screen. So here is a dashboard where we can see OpenStack infrastructure management interface, but we also have EC2 APIs, which also talk to other, which also talk to users through API. So we have in bottom, you see there is a bare metal engine, and on top of that, we have lifecycle management infrastructure. Obviously, we have a virtualization engine that is on top of your bare metal engine, but we also have lifecycle management infrastructure. For example, the Cola Ansible, OpenStack Charms, OOO, Bifrost, and there's so many other options. So OpenStack is not a small software, is a big software. If you see here in detail that this is a small landscape. So to manage our infrastructure, we also need to manage our virtualization. For what? For compute, for containers, for storage, for networking. For that, we have these red line services. If you see here we manage the virtualization with Nova, that is the virtual machines, containers with Zone, and functions in Kinling. And networking, Neutron, Octavia, Designate for DNS, load balancing with Octavia, and software-defined networking with Neutron. For hardware lifecycle, we have Ironic, we have Cyborg, and there is one more thing which is not mentioned here, that is a Metal as a Service by Canonical. I'm going to share some details about that. And storage, We have a three type of storage here. The object storage is a Swift, the block storage is Cinder, and the file storage is Manila. Then we have a shared services. What is shared services? Shared services are those which can talk to the other services and provide you a way to actually run your infrastructure. For example, if we really want to talk to the services through authentication, we have a keystone. So the keystone is a shared service which provide an authentication mechanism so we can talk to the other services inside the OpenStack infrastructure. I told you there is a 18 basic services which are required to run the engine, and after that we have a couple of other services, and you can keep adding other services whenever you need some extra functionality. So the glance is also the image shared services. Barbican is a key management like we have one key management infrastructure. Sorry, I forget the name. Uh, okay, I'll let you know. Sorry for my memory. It's I'm getting old, so my memory is also getting old. So there are some other shared services, and on top of that, if you would like to manage your workload provisioning, so we have a Magnum, we have a Trove, we have a Sahara application life cycle management, like template management. We have Murano, Solemn, Masakari. Masakari is the application which provide a high availability between multiple servers to shift your virtual machines in case of failure of your base physical servers to another without putting your services in danger. And this is a very good service. And orchestration where you can orchestrate your services just like that. So you have a templates inside your OpenStack engine. So the Heat is the orchestration engine, Mistral, AOD, Blazor, Zakar, Senlin. There's so many things. For monitoring the infrastructure, we have multiple things. For example, the Celometer, that is an Monasca. These are the services which provide you monitoring services. Then we have resource optimization like Watcher, like Witrage. Billing, Adjutant, Cloud Kitty. These are the billing services. And here you are the client tools. We have a OpenStack client tools that is a CLI based as well. So whenever you would like to talk to the basic infrastructure, like we have Amazon SDK, we have a Google Cloud SDK, we also have some other cloud providers. They are using their CLI tools like Azure. So we also have a OpenStack CLI client base, so that works with the encrypted keys with the server, so you can easily create your infrastructure, manage your infrastructure through infrastructure as a code applications, as we have a discussion in last presentation. So OpenStack can be managed through different applications who are talking to the OpenStack engine and sending the request through API, through the web interface, through the CLI interface. So who are the OpenStack contributors? This is very important for us to understand. It's not an application which is not a one-party application. It's open for everyone. So OpenStack is branding themselves open infrastructure environment. So there is a big list. Around 600 plus big companies are supporting OpenStack infrastructure services, their stuff like Rackspace. OpenStack was invented in 2010. It was invented by two companies. The first company is Rackspace, and the second one is NASA. So NASA were looking for a lot of compute resources to run their infrastructure. So they came up with invention of OpenStack environment with Rackspace. So here are some big companies in the world: Intel, Huawei, Ericsson, AT&T, Rackspace, Red Hat, SUSE, Tencent Cloud. Tencent Cloud is also from China. So here we have some other providers, contributors like Ubuntu, China Mobile, China Telecom, Dell, City Network, Cisco, T Mobile, China Unicom, EasyStack, Fiber Home, so many others. There are some other names like Mirantis, NEC, H3C, INAP, OVH Cloud, Vex Cloud, Rackspace. There are some other big names. So OpenStack is a software which is being backed by hundreds of big corporates in the world. And by the way, there are few names who are also using OpenStack inside their infrastructure, like Rackspace, Vexhost, OVH. These are public clouds. If I go up, Red Hat is also using OpenStack infrastructure to provide their open cloud infrastructure services. Tencent Cloud, Intel, Huawei. Huawei is also putting their infrastructure on OpenStack and also giving services to their clients using OpenStack software. And also IBM, Oracle. These are the big companies who are using OpenStack as a cloud software to run their infrastructure. So here you are, you see Juniper, you see IBM, you see NetApp, you see Samsung, you see STC, Orange, Elastic, and there's so many big names. I told you earlier that it's around 600 plus big corporates in the world who are empowering the OpenStack source code, putting their infrastructure, their services, everything. And they're also using inside their infrastructure. An important thing, they're also using OpenStack as a software for their clients. This is something very, very nice. Who uses OpenStack? So first of all, you can go to openstack.org/use-cases. So this is the portal where you can find everything, openstack.org. So here are some clients, or you can say big companies who are using OpenStack. So they are not few, they are hundreds. And they are literally hundreds. And they are running their infrastructure using OpenStack. So, for example, Walmart. Everyone knows Walmart. China Mobile, SBAB Bank, Blizzard Entertainment, Deutsche Telekom AG. Beidou is very big Chinese company. CERN Lab is in Switzerland. T-Mobile, Target, Progressive, Ontario Institute of Cancer. If you go to that list, you will be able to see there are hundreds of numbers. There are literally hundreds of numbers who are using OpenStack. Where to start? This is a very important question. So if you have a small machine around 8 cores and 16 GB RAM, so you can test your on OpenStack installation. So what is that? You just need to go to one website. Let me share my screen so I can show you that something is available and where. Give me 1 minute. So guys, are you able to see my another screen? I'm sharing here microstack.run.
Yeah,
so
we can see that.
Yeah. So it's very easy to start working with OpenStack. There is only one command. It's a one command and its power is backed by Canonical. Canonical is a company behind Ubuntu, the most famous in the world operating system, and it's being used by around 70% cloud instances in different public cloud providers. My company, Openware Business, is a partner of Canonical in Pakistan. We provide OpenStack deployment services for organizations. We have few clients like the Utility Store Corporation of Pakistan. I don't want to promote that, but I'm just saying because of one thing, that having this Canonical engine, you can run your infrastructure very easily and you can manage that big infrastructure. And the important thing, for example, you have a 10 machines, physical 10 machines inside your cluster, and you would like to expand this cluster to 50 machines. So what is required? So you can add the existing infrastructure, or you can have the new machine inside the new infrastructure, old infrastructure, by putting only few days efforts. Few day efforts is required for what? Because you need to plug in the cables of the servers, rack in the servers, something like that. but adding into the cluster, it will take only few hours. It's a very, very phenomenal thing. So in this, the one machine OpenStack engine, or they also support now multiple machines, but it was started as a project for a minimal OpenStack distribution inside single command. So you can run this command, and I'm going to share that. What you will get. So Canonical called it that command is snap. Snap is a way to install a big package having all requirement inside one package. So you can easily install that. If you see here, you can have the Keystone, Glance, Nova, Neutron with OVN, Cinder, Dashboard, Matrix, GPU, findings, clustering inside one. So getting started with MicroStack tutorial. Very easy. So here is a tutorial. You need to have a Ubuntu 20.4 LTS, and you just need to run this one command. This is a single command inside your Linux environment, especially Ubuntu, and you will get your OpenStack up and running in MicroStack. So this is a tutorial. It's a very easy tutorial. MicroStack init, auto control, interact with your OpenStack. You will be able to see this IP. When you open this IP on your browser, you will be able to see this user and password. And after that, you will be able to see that list of machines running inside your infrastructure. This is a virtual machine infrastructure. So you don't have to worry about that. You can just run this command to see the catalog list. And then you can run your command. Cirrus image is already available inside that that single command. So you can run that, access to that machine using this command. After that, so the whole blend of, you can say, experience will be there. You will be able to see your machine is up and running, and this whole will take only few hours. Why I'm saying few hours? Because if you're new with the OpenStack infrastructure environment, you might get some small errors running these commands. So don't worry about that. Just go with that, and it will be done within a few minutes. I'm also gonna make video on this environment. I have an idea. I have a YouTube channel as well. I'm not here to promote my channel, but I just wanted to share that we have one portal which is called opensourceeducation.net. On that portal, you can find trainings in Urdu for Linux, for Docker, for Kubernetes, for some other topics. Agile software development, AWS basics. So that is free of cost. Nobody's charging for anything. We have posted our video trainings. Me and my colleague, my teacher, Muhammad Kamran Azim, and so many other friends who are trying to put their efforts. So they are contributing over there. So here is my small topic. I try to push you guys that you should learn OpenStack as a carrier for your path. You know, if we want to run OpenStack inside the organization, what is required? It's not only required that organization needs to finalize that they are going to use OpenStack. No, they depend on us. We are tech people. We are the people who decide the technology stack. If we know how to save the money for them, if we know how to empower the organization with the new technologies, so that is the way we can move forward. I would like to engage you people that you should come up with on board with open source technology stuff. By using open source technology, what we can do, we can literally save millions. I have a one use case in government, and which is empowering us, that Utility Store Corporation of Pakistan, one and a half year back, my foundation, Open Source Foundation of Pakistan, encouraged them that you should use OpenStack infrastructure for your environment. We told them that, you know, Walmart, some organizations like Walmart and you guys are running this OpenStack infrastructure since ages inside their infrastructure. So they are utilizing these every day. They have thousands of stores. around the country in US and some other countries also using. So why don't you try? That was a big decision for them. So they asked me and my partner, who's also co-founder of Open Source Foundation of Pakistan, chairman Open Source Foundation of Pakistan, Salim Rafiq. So Salim took a decision with them, and we provided them full support to make a first use case in the country. We are having Open Source Summit from 11 to 17. So last night we had a discussion with KPIT board guys. They said they are also using OpenStack environment, and few other organizations are also using OpenStack environment. So this is a very good use case for us. So guys, thank you very much. I would like to have questions. If you have any questions, please let us know.
Yes, Babar, we have one question for you. So it goes like, can we combine hardware resources, CPU plus RAM from different servers with OpenStack, like server 1 equals to 16 GB RAM or server 2 16 GB for OpenStack total RAM 32 GB, and use those combined resources using OpenStack?
Okay, there is a tricky question. There are two parameters. The first thing, people normally ask this question to see that they can run their high performance computing applications, HPC applications. That is a different phenomena. In that we use Hadoop. But if you really want to pool up your resources in a single pool, for example, I have a server of 128 GB RAM, 16 CPU core. I have another server with 16 GB RAM. I have a third server with 256 GB RAM. So there are different size of servers inside my network pool. Yes, I can add all them together. Yes, I can add. But the question is, can I run a big machine having 300 GB RAM inside that infrastructure? No, we cannot. Why? Because the maximum RAM available with me is 256 GB in one machine. So that is a different question. So that's the second thing. But if we have a server like 256 GB RAM, so can I run multiple server inside that server for having 256 GB RAM for both? Yes, I can. The OpenStack infrastructure provides you the important thing that you can have multiple core, you can say. We usually call it thin provisioning, that we can have a different let me add some exact example. Yes, so for example, I have a 256 GB RAM and 16 CPU core server. So I wanted to run two machines with the same size. What it will do, it will provide me infrastructure as an OpenStack engine, so I can have multiple machines having the same resources. What it will do, it will basically switch the CPU between each other and run the application. So it won't stop anything inside in our infrastructure. So this provides us a very good option that if I wanted to use my CPU 1/8, so I have a one CPU, I can divide that into 8 CPU cores. So I have a 256 GB RAM, I can divide up to divided by 4. Sorry, not divided by, into 4. So I will get 1 TB of RAM. So this is the power of OpenStack infrastructure. I hope you got my answer, you guys. If there is confusion, I can.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So thank you so much, Babar. I think we almost ran out of time. Thank you so much. We don't have any more questions for you.
I would like to say one thing. I would like to say
sure,
one
go ahead.
DevCon, which is ran by Code Movement Pakistan, the summit we are running, we're doing the same thing. Why we are running two shows? We have very different opinion that how much people we can train in our working group. That is our goal. So we are having different set of speakers. You are having different set of speakers. We are trying to engage our community, both of us, Open Source Foundation of Pakistan, Code Movement Pakistan, and we work together closely. we both work together closely for one reason, that we really want to engage our people within the country to train our people within the country. So I would like to congratulate you guys. You're doing amazing job, and you're doing perfect job. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Babar. Thank you so much for giving all this information, and thank you for coming here today and give this amazing session to us. Moving on to another session now. So I would like to call upon again Abdul Rahman for one of the other boot camp that he is going to be conducting now. It is going to be on the topic of building ASP.NET MVC web application with Microsoft Graph SDK. I'd give this session to you now, Rahman.
Thank you again. Thank you again, Madiha. Just give me 1 minute and then I'll start.
Sure.
Share my screen. So are you able to see my screen and my camera as well?
Yes. Yes.
Perfect. So hi everyone again. This is Abdul Rahman, and now we will talk about build MVC apps with Microsoft Graph SDK. What we will do in this session, we will see what Microsoft Graph is, how we can use Microsoft Graph in our .NET MVC application, how we can use the authentication and authorization stuff, what are the scopes, how you can get started, and I'll also share some code samples and the resources as well by the end of this session. So let's get started. So what Microsoft 365 platform is. So Microsoft 365 developer vision focuses on the user experience and their data. And as a developer, you can bring your own application into the user experience with over 1.2 billion users of Office worldwide. So this is a huge opportunity to provide a window into your application and to enable users to connect into their data to in the intelligence to the intelligence to your application. So there are currently over 850 million events created each month, and a total of over 400 petabytes of data stored in that service that can add value to your users into your own application. So basically the Microsoft Graph is the gateway to your data in the Microsoft Cloud, as you can see in there in the above diagram. So it is basically the underlying layer, some sort of you can say an API or an endpoint that can call any of the Microsoft service inside your whether it be an Office 365 service or your OneDrive Business, OneDrive Live, personal services, or any of the service that Microsoft currently provides. So you can build your own experience on web apps as well as your device application and also headless application known as service apps. So the Microsoft Cloud includes multiple services and data types that we can take advantage of from Office 365, and it's all considered part of the Microsoft 365 platform. Developers can integrate the sign-in, a user's email, calendar, contacts, tasks, custom apps, and other things from the Office 365 platform. And we can work with content in SharePoint sites and list files in OneDrive channels. And content within Microsoft Teams and users in Azure Active Directory as well. So basically, in a nutshell, you can integrate all your whole Office 365, Windows, and the Enterprise Mobility and Security Suite into the Microsoft Graph SDK, and you can use it right away based on just single endpoint. So there are many different services that developers can take advantage of in their custom apps. Many of these services have their own APIs developers can interact with. However, this can be challenging to go to each of these individual services on with their individual endpoints. Each API may have its own permission model, which means they have individual access control configurations. Different endpoints for each service means our custom application will need to obtain an access token from the Azure AD for each one. So what does that mean? So what happens before Microsoft Graph is if you want to use, for example, a SharePoint library or OneDrive for business or OneDrive for personal use, you have to have like different endpoints configured into your application to communicate with all those endpoints. Even if you want to communicate with AD, you want Azure AD authentication. If you wanted to communicate with OneDrive for business or OneDrive Live for personal use, you wanted to maybe use their different libraries that Microsoft provides. So from Microsoft Graph, it comes under one platform that you can use, and everything is will be taken care of onto the backend. But you need to configure the scopes and everything, the permissions from the users. So one of the benefit of Microsoft Graph is that it serves as a proxy endpoint to all of these other services. Microsoft Graph encompasses things such as Office 365, Windows 10 Enterprise Mobility and Security, or also known as EMS, and it brings all of these different services under one unified endpoint, graph.microsoft.com. The advantage of using Microsoft Graph is that it allows developers to just have a single endpoint, a resource, which means a token authenticate, which means the token authenticate the different services. Each service that still has its own individual permission, so that everything is still secured in an individual way. A single endpoint makes it easier for the developers to build application rather than we create tens of services for tens of endpoints. So Microsoft Graph also enables easy navigation of entities and the relationship between entities. While there are many different Microsoft 365 services such as OneDrive for files, Outlook for contacts, and calendars, these different entities are related to each other. So these relationships in a Microsoft Graph, which makes it easy to navigate from one entity to another, even if it crosses the different underlying endpoints. So for example, your Outlook, your calendar depends on your relates to your Outlook, or your files relates to your Outlook or calendar. So these all services are basically interlinked, but previously you had to have different APIs. But Microsoft Graph is one endpoint that you can use to communicate with all those services based on one authentication and authorization service. So it also eliminates the need of a traditional recovery using me and my organization, which means if you want, me means okay, you want to access your own stuff, and my organization means okay, you want to access your own organizational host stuff, including SharePoint files and all that. So Office 365 direct API endpoints. So direct API endpoints for all the Office 365 may also be invoked, including Outlook, OneDrive, OneNote. So direct endpoints have new functionality before it is exported via Graph API. And for example, you have Outlook webhooks as well, time zones on calendar. So you have all these endpoints, and you can call all those via Microsoft Graph on API. So single authentication flow for Office 365. So what does this mean? So Microsoft Graph basically simplifies token acquisition, because with all of these different services in Microsoft 365, we would have to obtain a separate access token for each of them. Microsoft Graph basically proxies the different services together, so we don't need to obtain individual tokens for each service. Microsoft Graph through one endpoint will proxy calls to each service's endpoints. So there is basically a proxy services enabled onto the backend. You don't need to do anything. You just integrate Microsoft Graph SDK, and everything will be taken care of onto the backend. So one thing. So this eliminates the need for the traditional discovery service. Prior to Microsoft Graph, developers had to use a discovery service to ask the different endpoints with Microsoft 365 for the user-specific endpoints for each service, such as OneDrive and Outlook. One thing to keep in mind is that because it is a proxy service, you may see new functionality and features show up in these downstream endpoints before they appear in Microsoft Graph. This is because Microsoft Graph is a proxy, and it cannot expose functionality that does not exist downstream in one of the services that it is proxying. So there are different apps, websites, spas, and service apps available. You can integrate any of your application with Microsoft Graph, and you can also it also support the multi-factor authentication and federated user sign-in based on Azure AD authentication services. And we'll see in a while how we can use this in our own applications. So common consent flow. So common consent means if you have the single auth flow for accessing all the Office 365 service. So Office 365 has a simple authentication flow that Microsoft Graph also uses. So users sign in using the technology called OpenID Connect. You may be familiar with it. It's basically an open standard. OpenID Connect is a wrapper to OAuth 2 authentication protocol that will include details about the individuals who logged in. So Azure AD is used for all the authentication stuff, and Microsoft Graph uses the same authentication model as Azure and Office 365 that is built on top of the authentication model for Azure Active Directory. So both of these services trust Azure Active Directory, and by having this shared trust, we can leverage the authentication to take advantage of both of these different services with the same authentication flow. So the flow that is currently on the screen right now, you may be familiar with it. So uh, whenever you sign into your Office 365 or even your own Live or Outlook account, so this is basically the same authentication flow that comes in front of you. So Azure AD basically uses this same authentication workflow, and this also support multi-factor authentication that you see in the previous lecture. I use multi-factor authentication to sign into Azure or GitHub, and also the federated user sign-ons. So it supports also different kinds of application, from device application, including mobile devices, websites, single-page applications that live 100% in the client, or as a headless application with no user involvement. For example, Azure Functions or AWS Lambdas. These are also referred to as daemon apps or as a service. So one of the concepts with Azure AD is the common consent framework. So to best understand consent, think about the permission in the concept of a triangle. So one point of the triangle is the permission. Another point is the user or the application, and the last one is the resource that you're talking to. So the user needs to talk. The user needs to have the permission to talk to the resource. So the first time the user signs in to Azure AD to obtain the access token to authenticate with Microsoft Graph, Azure AD first checks and see, okay, if this user have the permission or not, and grant this application access to the Microsoft Graph. And it also specifically checks to see if the app has been granted the access to these permissions or not. So after this, the way that this works is if the user hasn't gone through the permission process, the common consent framework kicks in, and after the user kicks in, and after the user sign in, and you will see the dialog shown in the previous image above. So when the user signed in, when the user sign in and hasn't granted the permission to the endpoint to the application, the consent framework prompts them to do so. So this process is called the delegated consent. So when the user approves the dialog prompt, it grants specific permissions. It grants specific permission of that application. So it grants basically grants a specific application a specific permission to the app to act on a user behalf. So basically, what you do is you grant that application permissions. Okay, you have the permission to obtain or to access the data, or whatever the permission you are providing, or to read your profiles, or if you want to if you want to give the permission to read the calendar, so you give that permission to the application that we create in the Azure Active Directory, and Microsoft Graph communicate to it. And basically there are also long-term access through refresh tokens. So basically, whenever you have the token, the access token, so it basically actives for over an hour, and whenever it expires, so you can get the refresh token silently from the backend without again signing in and granting the permissions from your website or from your application. So basically, there are two authentication options. So Microsoft Graph supports two authentication options to authenticate. One option is the Azure Active Directory only, or you can also say a work or a school account. And the other option is a converged authentication, which is Azure Active Directory and Microsoft accounts. So Microsoft accounts are basically those that we use as a live.com or outlook.com or hotmail.com. So those are also known as Microsoft accounts. And worker school accounts can be, for example, datamsphere.com or abcxyz.com that you configured on your Office 365 and Azure Active Directory. So in this case, you can use the exact same code in the Microsoft Graph, the same endpoints, the same SDKs to get the files, either in OneDrive Consumer or OneDrive for Business. The same is true for calendar, contacts, and email in Outlook.com and Outlook 365. So the nice thing is that the data you fetch is all depends on the login of the user that signed in. So you don't have to write special code or use special different APIs or endpoints to get data for the consumer accounts or for the business accounts. So from which the account from which the user sign in, the data depends on that. If they are signing in from the business account or the Azure AD account, it can get the data from the organization level, for example, the designation of the user and the department of the user and etc. So if you are signing in from Microsoft account or the Live or Hotmail accounts, you have the data is based on that stuff as well. So as previously stated, Microsoft Graph supports both Microsoft accounts and Azure AD accounts, also referred to as worker school accounts. So nothing in Microsoft Graph API or SDKs is unique to the sign-in. The code is the same. The sign-in determines which service Microsoft Graph will access. If the user signed in from the Microsoft account, the file endpoints map to OneDrive Consumer, and if it access to Azure AD account, it will map to OneDrive for Business or the business services from which the user signs in. So determine which account type your app supports, or it supports both. You set a specific setting in the associated Azure AD app registered in the Azure AD Admin Center. So we'll create an app and see how we can give these permissions to our application to use which workflow we want based on our requirements and needs. So if this application is only for your own organization, so you might not want to authenticate the user with Microsoft account, and so they only need to authenticate with their own federated user sign-ins and Azure AD accounts. So the first step we will do is we create a simple basic ASP.NET web application and configure it with MSAL, or you can also say Microsoft Authentication Library, and OWIN middleware for authentication with Azure AD. So what we do is we first create a web application which will be ASP.NET MVC application, and then we configure it for the SSL URL. That is a simple one step, and then what we'll do is we install all the dependencies for OWIN middleware and also Microsoft Graph from the NuGet package store. So these are all the packages that we need to install. So these includes okay, so these includes basically you can see we have OWIN dependencies, we have the identity client that will communicate with the Azure AD, and then we have the Microsoft Graph that will communicate with the identity, and then we will use the OWIN middleware for authentication and authorization. So you can see we also have OpenID Connect service installed that will be used onto the backend. So let's demo it, and I'll open up Visual Studio. So what we'll do is, how I created this project is I simply go into File, New, or let me just open up a new instance. File, New, Create New Project, and I go with, you can search on ASP.NET in here, let it load the templates. Come on, system seems slow. Okay, so you have all the templates in here based on loading. So you have a ASP.NET Core application, ASP.NET MVC application. So I'll go with the MVC one this time. I've gone with Core application before. So we'll go with the ASP.NET MVC application, and when you click on Next, you give the application the name choose the framework and then click create. So it will create the ASP.NET MVC web application. So then what you need to do is go into the properties, or just you go into the view and property window. So it will open up the properties, so you can configure your own SSL URL. Just note down this URL, you might be needed later. So if this is not in here from your side, just make this SSL enabled to true from false, and it will automatically create the URL for you. So this is a HTTPS URL, and this is the HTTP URL for your this application. And then what I did is, let me just go into first references, and you can see I already have installed some open references, also the identity clients, and also the graph SDKs. We have all the packages installed. If you don't have installed, just go to the NuGet package manager and install these dependencies I mentioned before. And then what you need to do is you need to configure the startup class with the Oven middleware. So what I did is I created a startup.cs class. It might not be there built in because it's an ASP.NET MVC web application and not the core one. So what you need to do is you configure this class with the Oven startup library. You say, okay, start the Oven startup class, and Oven startup class will be our this startup class, and we'll do some configurations in a while. Based on our authentication and authorization, how we can do it. And then what I do is I went into and create a model to create an alerts to display some error messages and flash it over, onto the front end. And then I went to some content and added some CSS for my website. And also I configured this some of the, if you can go to the shared layout, so you can see we have alert messages in here that will come from the backend stuff. And what I did is I added some CSS styles in here, the modernizer, my own CSS, and you have all your own application name, uh, URLs. And so you see if the request is authenticated, it will display this URL, otherwise it will display just the index URL. And same goes with the here. So if the request is authenticated, it will display the user display name and the email address, and create a sign out button for us. So how it will all work, we'll see in just a while. And then in here we see, okay, how the number of alerts we have will display the alert message in here. And then if I go into controllers and base controller, so base controller has this method, flash method. This will flash the error messages, basically get the error messages and then return them to the front end and flash those error messages into our application. So if I go into home controller, so home controller is basically derived from the base controller that I just showed you, and base controller is derived from the class MVC.controllers class. So here we can so we have the base controller class, so we can use this the flash error messages into all of our controllers, so we don't need to call it again and again and again. So this is basically pretty simple class. And this, if I run this application, I'll run it in incognito window. So if I have it, okay, so I'm not signed in, so you see we have a sign in button in, oops. So we have a click here to sign in button. If I click to sign in, we have not configured our authentication yet. Okay. So if you do have a code, so if you don't have the code as an account controller, so it will just redirect you to 404. And we also have a sign in button here and the docs button. So if you want some graph concepts, so you just go to the docs. So let's come back to our presentation. Okay. Yes. So what we have done now is we have created an application. Now what we do is we register our application onto the Azure portals and configure the credentials so we can communicate with that application, and we also select the application type, whatever the application type is, if it uses a Microsoft own authentication flow or the Azure AD one or the both. And then we can also configure some permissions, which scopes should this application use. So let's talk about the endpoint first. So basically there are two endpoints, V1 endpoint and V2 endpoint. So Azure AD contains two authentication token endpoints. So the V2 endpoint is the recommended endpoint for all applications that uses a Microsoft Graph should adopt. To understand why, it helps to understand what the benefit of it and what the benefit are of V2 endpoints over the V1 endpoints. So Azure AD V1 endpoint only supports Azure AD authentication. It does not support any other styles of authentication such as Microsoft accounts. And what that means is if the user was logging in with a personal account and consumer account, and also known as Microsoft account, and they wanted to access things like OneDrive consumer accounts and or Outlook.com, the developer of the application would have to write special authentication code to handle these types of accounts or these types of authentication and authorization protocols. So this is a disadvantage of the V1 endpoint, as it only supports in school accounts, or you can say Azure AD accounts. So you had to have configure uh, both endpoints. If whether it is Azure AD or Microsoft account, you have to have configure both. So another challenge of the V1 endpoint is that it only supports static consent, not the dynamic or single consent protocols. So static consents means all the single permissions that an application needs must be defined ahead of time, and the user on the first login would be required to grant the consumer to the application for all. So for example, if we want to read users calendar, and then at a later time we want to read, for example, it's the user OneDrive files as well. So we had to have the user had to have to give the consent for both of these applications, rather than we can use the first permission for the first time and then a second permission the second time whenever we have that feature ready. So Azure AD V2 endpoint enables these things. So let's talk about the key improvements for V2 versus V1. So V2 endpoint addresses these two shortcomings with the V1 endpoints. First, it implemented converged authentication that merges with the Microsoft account and the work and school account, known as Azure AD account sign-in experiences together, and the developers no longer needed to direct users to the specific sign-in experience. So all the users are sent to the converged sign-in experience and rely on Microsoft identity to determine the type of accounts. So this also enables developers to write the same code to access Microsoft Graph for things like reading mail or retrieving contacts and getting the files from the OneDrive for business or consumer. So another benefit for the V2 endpoint is the dynamic consent. So dynamic consent differs from the static consent in that whenever a user sign in and the application requests the permissions it needs at a time, Microsoft Identity will determine if the user has previously consented to the requested permission. If one or more hasn't been consented, the user is presented with the consent dialog for only those new permission requests and not the old one. So if you have already give the consent to the application for the old permission, so it won't give you the consent again. Consent dialog. The V2 endpoint also supports the OpenID Connect standard, including an ID token whenever there is a sign-in request. So this is an extension of the authentication protocol, and once the user successfully signed in, will be returned in the sign-in request to the application. So the ID token contains information about the current user, such as their email address and their name, while the V1 endpoint has some of the supports. While the V1 endpoint had some support for the OpenID Connect, the V2 endpoint better conforms the OpenID Connect specification. For example, you use a principal name instead of UPNs and all. So we also have well-known OpenID Connect scopes, for example, offline access that enables the refreshing tokens, and OpenID email profile, and all of the OpenID standards. So let's see how we can register our application onto the Azure AD portal. So first you need to sign into the portal, go to the app registrations, and you will see the dialog right that is on the left side. So whenever you create an application, you click on, you provide the application the name, and then you see, okay, which type of application is this, whether it is a single tenant or a multi-tenant, or whether it is any organization directory, or it can access Azure AD and Microsoft account as well, including the personal accounts only, personal accounts and Azure AD. And then once we have the application added to the Azure AD, we then have to configure some client secrets. And whenever, so once we have the secrets, we can communicate with that application directly from our .NET .NET Core .NET application or .NET Core application. So once you have the secrets, you now give the permissions. Okay, this application requires this application can have this permission, for example, mail.read or mail.read write, or whatever the permissions you want to give. So let's have a demo. I close this application and I already am in Azure portal. I click on, I go to this and go to Azure Active Directory. And then I go into app registrations, which is right here. So I already have this application. Let's create a new one for the demo purpose. Devcon v, okay, v graph tutorial. And I'll go with accounts in any organization, including personal accounts and the Azure AD accounts. And we can also give our redirect URLs here, or right after registering the application. So I click on register. Now, once the application is created, you need to note down this application ID. So I click on copied and I go into Notepad or wherever you want to store it. I copied it, and then you wanted to configure the redirect URI from here. So redirect URI will be our hold on, it will be web, and it will be our localhost URI. So let me get the URL from the project that I created, properties, and 44375. I go in and add this URL in here. You can also give the logout URL, but that's not necessary for now. So I go and access. Okay, I also need the ID tokens along with the redirect URIs. I click configure. So the redirect token is configured and our application is registered. And now what we need to do is we need to create a secret in here. So I go in client secrets and click on new secret. You can give the expiration time. I'll go with, okay, this secret will expire in 1 year. I go with defcon or whatever the name it is. So now you have the secret. You need to copy this value in here from the secrets and store it somewhere so we can use this in our application. So now what we need to do is let me open up the application and show you. Yes. So once we have our application ready, we'll go into web config, and we need to add some secrets in here. So what we do is I've configured some private settings file and included it in web config. So our app ID will go in here. I'll just copy and paste, and the secret will go in client secret, so we can use these settings in our application afterwards. So we have this configured, and now what you need to do is we've configured some startup class and added some startup class and configured it with Oven. Now I have added some configure auth method, and this method is in startup.auth.cs class. So what this method do is we'll go in OpenID. So it will basically get these settings from the app settings, the app ID, app secrets, redirect URI, and the app scopes. And what it will do is it basically creates a new OpenID authentication, OpenID connect authentication, and add some client ID authority, which will be our Microsoft Online or Azure AD V2 endpoint, and the scopes that we want to configure with our with this authentication protocol. So we'll go with OpenID, email, profile, and offline access for the uh, refresh tokens, and also whatever we configured in the file for the graph scopes in private settings.config file, these scopes. So user.reads and calendar.read. So it will read the user profile and the calendar settings as well. So the redirect URI, that will be our redirect URI from the private settings. It's also configured onto in the Azure AD application. And then we have the token validation parameters and this notification. So whenever we have authentication code received, it will go into this method, and if the authentication fails, it will go to this method. So let's see first the fail one. So fail ones is just simple enough. We just redirect our application to the error page and display the message that is coming from the Azure AD authentication. And then whenever the code is received, what we do is I've created an confidential client application builder with the application ID, redirect URI, and app secret, and so it will basically create an instance of that application that we can use to authenticate the user and store its information into some kind of token store as well. So we have the sign-in user we have the sign-in user object, and we have the token store for that signed-in user. And then what I did is we have the scopes ready in the graph scopes object that is above in here, right? And what we need to do is we need to acquire token by authorization code. So we now have the code because this method is called whenever the code is received. So we have the code. We now then authorize the user based on the scopes and this codes. Okay, whenever if we have the new scopes, it will open up the consent, and if the consents are already been given by the user, it will then log into the user. So we have basically these user details. So we have the graph helper for the get user details based on the access token. Let's see what it's doing. So graph service client, basically what it does is we pass some access token in it, and then what it will do is it will initialize the graph service client. So this graph service client will be used to communicate with the Microsoft Graph SDK or the Graph API. So this is basically the service client that we need to use, and this service client will need to have the bearer token that will be our access token. So it means that our application knows that okay, we have the access token and we configured it with the Graph service client, and then we are ready to use the Graph service client to access the things that we provided in the permission. So now what we need to do is we have the graphs client ready. Then we request is graph.me.request. What you need to request is you need to select the user display name, email, and user principal name, or you can also say username. So we have these things ready as a user, and we return that user objects in this. So we are not getting the picture, so it will be empty. So if you want to get a picture, you can get that picture from the Azure AD as well. So we return the user from in here to here, and now we have the user details, and we store these user details in the token store, and will then handle the token ID token authentication redemption. So let's open up now authentication controller, how it is basically using the application. So what it does is whenever a sign-in request, if the request is not authenticated, it goes to the oven context, and we know that our oven context is directly binded by the middleware to our startup.auth class. So it will automatically run all the authentication mechanism and redirect user to the application based on the OpenID Connect authentication defaults. And if the user signs out, so we sign out the user. What we do is we clear the token, we sign out the user from the application, and redirect the application, redirect the user to the index page or whatever the page we want to redirect. So let's run this application and see if it is working. Let me open graph.helper again and see. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Come on. Since it is in the debug mode, it will take the time for the first time sign in. Come on. Yeah. So now we have the button. Whenever I click here to sign in, it should redirect me to login.microsoft-online/v2 endpoint, and it tries to sign me in, and it asks me, okay, this is the application that I configured in the Azure AD. It needs my permission to do this stuff. Read your profile, read your calendar, because we given the scope for the calendars.read as well. So if I click yes, it will grant the access to the application on my behalf, and if I click no, and then it will not grant the consent to the application and get back to the failed message. So now I have signed in. It automatically gets my name, and if you see, it also gets my email address as well, the user.email or user.upn that you see in the code. If I sign out, it will sign me out, and we can see that we have also have the links above available for the other stuff. If I want to, like, we'll see how we can get the calendars from based on the sign-in users. So I'll go with this one. So now what we have ready is we created an ASP.NET application. We authenticated it with the Azure AD sign-in protocols, and we also we also configured our Graph API, Graph SDK into our application, and get the user profile details and display it onto our front-end page and navigation bars. So how you can incorporate? You install NuGet packages, authenticate with Azure AD, create instance of the Graph Service client, and issue request and process results that we just did. And the Graph SDK is basically Microsoft.graph, simple enough. And how you can obtain a Graph Service client? So so we have a method name get user access token, async method, and what it does is, as I already mentioned, it will create a confidential client builder based on our application ID, redirect URI, and the app secret. So it will initialize the application builder, and based on that ID client, what we do is we store the user information into our token store and get the accounts of the user. Okay, if it is we see, okay, tell me an account if it is the Azure AD account or personal accounts, and we now have the accounts based on the signed in user. Now then what we did is we have the ID client, and then what we did is we configure some tokenization concepts for the refresh tokens. Okay, if our access token is expired, uh, go back to the authentication protocols and authentication libraries and get me some new refresh token. So this all happens onto the backend stuff. So you don't need to go directly into the sign-in protocols again and put your IDs and passwords in there. And so this all happens onto the backend silently. So and then it returns basically the access token. So now we have the graph service client ready. We'll then use it. The AD client ready will then initialize our graph service client. So what we did is we create and delegate authentication provider, and pass the authentication provider and get the access token from the user token async from the sample authentication provider that we have already, and then we basically add the authorization header for the access token, the bearer token, into the authorization headers. And so now we have the graph service client ready, and we can return the graph service client based on that provider. So this is basically the experience that we just noticed. It asks us to sign in, get the permissions based on the users and the scopes, and then it will return the data to our application. So this is basically a graphical overview point. So what it does is it sign into the Azure AD, get the access token, and then it will talk to the Microsoft Graph and see, okay, get me the calendar items or whatever you want to get, and Microsoft Graph basically then returns the all the calendar items or whatever you configured in the scopes, and whichever the endpoint you're calling from the graph. So this is the first time you are signing in. You sign into the application. It sign in, get the consent. The consent, the authorization code returns back, and you use your application. And then, for example, at some time after an hour or so, if the token expires, it will then go back silently to the authentication library or authentication uh, services, get the refresh token silently, and get back to the user's profile right from the backend. You don't need to sign in from the front end again. So let's see the demo. This is basically the last demo for the day. Okay, I click on this. Okay, so we have also seen how we authenticated, and so what we need to do is we need to get our the calendar events for the user and display it onto our website. So what it does is, for example, I click on the calendars controller. What it does is, okay, go to the graph helpers and get the all the events async. So graph helper dot get events async. What it does is, what we need to do is it initializes the graph service client based on the code that we just saw, uh, all the authentication protocols and delegated authentication providers and all. Get the access token and add it to the header of the our request, and return that client to back to the method, the get event async method. So now we have our graph service client ready. Now we can get the calendar events for the user. So what we do is graphline.me.events.request, and we select what we need to select is the subject of the event of the calendar event, organizer, start date and end date, and we can also order by from the created datetime property and descending and get async method. So we now have the events ready. We return it back to our controller, and controller, what it do is it automatically uh, do some parsing and then return to the view. So let's see if it is working. Okay, so I click on sign in. It will use the same authentication protocols that we just saw. Trying to sign in because I already have my ID cached in the browser. So seamless experience, because I already gave the consent. It doesn't ask me to give the consent again. And we also have the name and email address here. And if I go to calendar events, so you can see that all of my calendar events are available in here. So let's go back to the code. So this is pretty simple. If you have initialized the graph service client, then the rest of the things becomes pretty simpler based on the other stuff. So we also have this token store, session token store in here. This is what we configured for the tokenization and stuff, and for the user store. So this you can also get help from this and get use of this into your own application, or you can create your own tokenization mechanism or the section mechanism. And route config is pretty simpler as well. So I think that's all for the code stuff. Models are, oops. So this is basically the cached user that we return from the graphs from the Azure AD authentication service. So that's it from my side for today. So if you got any questions, feel free to ask.
Hi, Raman. I don't think I have received any questions yet for you.
Okay, so this means either everything is completely understood or nothing is understood. Anyways.
Could be either of the things, but I haven't received anything yet.
I believe most of the things should be clear, but if you don't have anything, if you are confused with something, just reach out to me and I can guide you with the resources, and I can even help you in your own application. So thank you so much for having me.
Perfect. So thank you so much, Abdul Rahman, for such an amazing session today. So I think it was quite some time and people would really want to have some break right now. So let's just move on towards our break. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us, Abdul Rahman. So now it's time for a short lunch break. So it is going to be a 30-minute break. So it's about 1:23. It was supposed to start at 1:30, but let's count it from 1:30 to 2 p.m. So let's start our next session at 2 p.m. So until then, we'll be signing off for 30 minutes.